Stacy. There we go. Alrighty, Council, I'll call us to order at 6:34 for our special meeting of Council. And the first item in front of us is declaration of pecuniary interest. Does any member have a pecuniary interest in in-camera session coming up? Seeing none, then I'll need a mover and seconder for the following motion. That in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2017-86, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene move into an in-camera session to discuss personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Rawson, Deputy Mayor. Comments, questions on this? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? That is carried. And we'll adjourn back to the judges' chambers for this session, please. All righty, council, I'll call us back to order. And I need somewhere in here. I need a mover and seconder for the following motion, that the council of the town of Penetanguishene rise from the in-camera session with a report. Councillor Rawson, Councillor Levy. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. I'll need a mover and seconder for the following motion, that the roadmap for service delivery review be received for information, and that the attached service delivery review roadmap be approved, and that staff proceed as directed. Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Mariette. Comments, questions on this one? See none, I'll call for the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, and the final one in front of us, I need a mover and seconder for this one, that the staff be directed to keep the bank glue time cap at 80 hours as per the current policy. Mover and seconder. Councillor Rawson, Councillor Mariette again. And all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. In the question period from the media and public, seeing we're in camera, I can't imagine there'd be very many questions coming up, so I'll go to a motion to adjourn, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Saunders, all in favor? And we are adjourned, Stacy, at looks like 6:58 or thereabouts. Okay, close enough. I'll go with you. 6:51. You got better eyes. She's younger, in fairness to me. All right, so we'll adjourn for 10 minutes, and then we'll start council at 7 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Alrighty, council, I'll call our meeting to order. Now, of course, I look at our clerk, because our clock says 6 o'clock, so are we going to make everybody wait because we haven't turned the clock ahead, or am I okay to go? I think we're okay to go. It's 7 o'clock officially. Thank you for that. All right, so welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming in. I know a lot of folks here. We've got some presentations tonight. We've got the Queens Court subdivision on topic tonight, so a lot in place. So certainly appreciate everybody coming out and joining us, and a lot of folks are watching us on live stream tonight, so thank you for that. For council, we're doing probably the first in the province of Ontario. So the province of Ontario passed legislation probably a month or so back that if a council member wasn't here, they could actually participate electronically. So we have Councillor Lauder and Councillor Leroux on the telephone here tonight. So council, you will see some microphones in and around you to speak into. Those mics are not geared to this mic. So if you're mumbling under your breath, Doug and Mike can hear you. So I'm just saying, if we lose them, they'll call back in. And for the public, we're going to do our best here. Absolutely, there's 444 municipalities, and go figure we're the first to try this. So we'll do our best to keep Mike and Doug in the game as well. So council, if you can stand and join me in the council commitment, please. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here to assist us in promoting good government, may our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you so much. Agenda item number 3, we have to approve tonight's agenda. So it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of March 14, 2018 be approved as presented. Any comments or questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote then. All in favor? And that is approved. Sorry, guys, I forgot you already. Alrighty. Okay, so where am I now? Now I'm lost in this. Okay, so declaration of pecuniary interest. Does any member of council have pecuniary interest to declare? Councillor Rawson, please.
Your Worship, 10A is in the Planning Section Committee of the Whole Report. Item 6B2 from that committee of February the 14th. Zoning bylaw amendment application ZA3 2018, 173 and 177 Robert Street East. I'm declaring a conflict of pecuniary interest as I'm a principal in the business.
Thank you for that. So Stacey will have to pull that out and do a separate motion for that. Thank you for that. Does any other member of council have pecuniary interest? Well, seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that spot as we move along, let us know and we'll address it appropriately. We'll go on to next is presentations, and we have actually 4 of those, so I'll switch seats here and go up to the other podium. All right, that's cute. All righty, so first one up in front of us is actually won this way back. I can't tell you when I won the Silver Stick, but it was a while ago, and it was at Bantam, so I know how special this is and how hard it is to win that division. So tonight we've got, and I asked Councillor Mayette to join me here at the podium. Tonight we have the Penetanguishene Paul Watson Esso Bantam Flames, who traveled to Forest, Ontario to compete in the International Silver Stick, and that was on January 19th through 21st of this year. The Flames claimed the title of the 2018 Bantam B champions, defeating the Listowel Cyclones 3-1 in the final. This is the first international Silver Stick championship for Penetanguishene team in 22 years. So it's been a dry spell. Well done. On behalf of the council of the town of Penetanguishene, and I'm sure everybody in this room, I'd like to present each team member and coaching staff a certificate of recognition. But first of all, a round of applause. Well done, everybody. And for the players and coaches, as you come up, after you get your certificate, don't run out. We want to take a picture, so make sure you come up, stick around, and we'll get a picture of everybody. So with that, we'll start to hand out the certificates. And the first one up is Alex Brown. Yeah, stand in front here. And then Jake Brown.
Okay.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations. Good game. Good show, guys.
Anybody guessing that they're brothers? Sierra Morrow Miss Sierra, here she comes. Congratulations, Sierra. Well done.
Congratulations.
And then Nathan Burial. Is Nathan here? Very good. Congratulations, well done.
Congratulations, well done.
And then Brian Huma. Congratulations, well done.
Congratulations.
He's got a good grip, by the way, everybody. So I'm going to make sure I say this right. Carter Weisflog, did I say that correctly? Good. Congratulations, well done.
Congratulations, Carter, well done. Good.
Zachary Smith. Congratulations, Zachary, well done.
Well done.
And Andrew Smith. Well done, Andrew. Well done. Congratulations.
Well done.
Liam Sanama. Well done, Liam. Good job.
Well done.
Luke Lalonde. Congratulations, Luke. Well done.
Congratulations. Good game.
Logan LaRue. Good job. Well done. And Camden McIver. Well done, Camden. Good job. Luke Charlebois. Well done, Luke. Good job.
Good game.
Dakota Sperling. Well done. Congratulations. Tyler Kraftcheck. Well done, Tyler. Congratulations. Carter Wilson. Well done. Congratulations. And the head coach, Andy Sanama. Well done, Andy. Well done, Andy. Good job. And the trainer, Ken LaRue. Well done, Ken.
Congratulations.
Well done, Ken. Good job. And the assistant trainer, Jeff McIver. Well done, Jeff. Congratulations. And the assistant coach, Greg Lalonde. Oh, is he here? Okay, yeah. Okay. And our manager is Steph Weislog. So, Steph. Apparently you were being the quiet one. Get your bottle of wine later. How's that? Okay. Perfect. We'll get a picture. Coaches up there.
On three flags. 1, 2, 3. Flags.
You know they're taking selfies, right? Mom and Dad want to get closer for a better shot. Feel free. Ready? Maybe a final round of applause, everybody. Well Maybe I'll have the deputy mayor join me for the next two presentations. So happy to announce that on behalf of the town of Penetanguishene Council, we're presenting a check in the amount of $10,000 to the Georgian Bay Hospital Foundation. This is the last installment of a 3-year commitment that we had for totaling $30,000 over that period of time to help the foundation buy and purchase a new CT scanner, that is an awesome device. But I'll let Gail and Shelley tell you more about that device than I will. So if you want to come up, Gail, and we'll give you the actual check, one you can cash. The big one's good for the photo, though. Bring that too. And maybe before they present the check, did you want to say a few words, Gail?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we'd be very excited to have a check I can actually cash versus our nice big picture one. So thank you for inviting me to your council meeting this week. I'm Gail Hunt, the President and CEO of Georgian Bay General Hospital, and I'm here tonight to do one of the most enjoyable aspects of my job, which is getting a check. And it's always a pleasure to be called upon to show up and get the much needed and much appreciated donation for the hospital. And I know it's always a pleasure to be given the chance to thank loyal supporters for their contributions to the hospital. The town of Penetanguishene's support of the hospital began nearly 20 years ago and has never waned since. You've given $140,000 to our hospital to purchase new equipment and redevelop our emergency department, which I'm pleased to say is under the third and final phase of construction. And we expect the project to be complete later this spring or early summer. Another exciting project we hope to have completed this summer is our new CT scanner, and the town of Penetanguishene has played a major part in this, along with your latest pledge, including today's $10,000 contribution. And while I'm here, I'll give you a brief update on the CT progress. As a team, we've reevaluated the physical location of the CT scanner within the department, and we're going to move it to a space more well-suited to the unit and better flow for the patients in the department. So renovations to the space will begin soon, and then the new unit will arrive, be commissioned, and begin providing this critical diagnostic test to patients. So we're very excited to add this new equipment to our hospital and due to municipal and donor support of it. And I look forward to more opportunities for the hospital and the town to work together in meeting the needs of our community. So thank you very much, and enjoy your evening.
Okay, sure, whatever you want, Steve.
Oh my God! I know where to find you.
Exactly. I'm going to put in a shameless plug for our Rotaract, who's doing March Madness, raising money for the CT scanner on March the 24th. So for those who want to go through 17 municipal type of obstacles, it's March 24th. It's down in our Rotary Park. Always a good time. I've done it twice. Our Rotaract Club is the younger version of the Rotary. So I think they're 16 to 29-year-olds or under 30. 18 to 35, there you go, what do I know? 18 to 35, but they're engaged. This is their first major undertaking, so come on out and support. If you can't participate, come on out and cheer some folks on and enjoy a good day. I think there's music and there's food and there's some cold beer. Hopefully it's a warm day, so the cold beer makes sense, but it's a good afternoon, so March 24th in our park. Thanks. And next up is the Community Response Team, CERT, and we're presenting a check in the amount of $5,000 to the Midland Penetang District CERT to assist with repairs to their mobile vehicle unit that they use for all the events that you see, like March Madness. Their second plug, I'm getting good at this. Like March Madness. So Bev and team, if you want to come up and maybe say a few words, and then we'll present you a check.
My partner evaded me. Thank you very much for the assistance from the council members. We are a busy, very busy group. Yes, March Madness, but we just finished hockey games, baseball's coming up, basketball, you name it, we're there. We're there for the communities, and we enjoy every minute of it. Thank you very much for your support, council members, and the town of Penetang Machine.
Do we have a big check instead of a little check? Right, you just got the little one, so where do you want it, Stace?
Back up there.
Back up here again? Okay. You betcha. Thanks for all you do. And maybe I'll have Councillor Rawson join me on this one. It is transportation related. And so we're happy to present a check to Community Reach of North Simcoe in the amount of also $10,000. Community Reach North Simcoe is to assist in the purchase of a new community van for the Transportation Linking Communities program. So if our team can come up and maybe share a few words about your program, and happy to present a check on behalf of council.
On behalf of Susan McDonald, who had to send her regrets tonight, our very dedicated executive director, our board, and on behalf of all of the dedicated staff and volunteers at Community Reach, we very much appreciate your support and your assistance in continuing to maintain a vital link in our community. I'm going to let Rick speak. He's there every day, and he'll tell you a little bit more about what we do.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the town for this generous donation. Last year we provided over 4,000 rides to the North Simcoe area, of which 900 were for Penetang Machine residents. We started our first accessible transit vehicle, which is an accessible van for people in wheelchairs, and we are so busy that this donation is going to go to purchasing a second one. So we're in the works right now trying to get something on the go right now, and if all goes well, we should have the second vehicle up and running hopefully by early to midsummer. Once again, thank you once again for this general donation and your support of us over the years.
Who wants to get their hand on the check? Oh, there we go. Excellent. Like we're all friends. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for all you do. Yes, it is. For those who are standing, there's about, I guess, 6 chairs available up front here now if you want to come up, and I see the odd chair here and there that's available. We're going up to 8 chairs. I can auction them off, yes. Yeah, Mike and Doug's chairs are ready to sit up front. I heard that too. Alrighty, so we're going into a public meeting, and this is about our official plan. And so let me just read the rules of engagement for the public in council. So this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to provide an opportunity to comment on the new official plan for the town of Penetang Machine. For council, the purpose of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the official plan, nor is it intended, did I jump in? You want me to go in order, really? Okay, we'll do that. I got, our clerk's get Nancy. I jumped the gun. Where's the 6? Yeah, no, I'm looking for the motion to move in second. 6A. Okay. Okay, we're missing a motion, but it's moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by myself, the zoning and bylaw amendment to remove the holding H symbol ZA 1-2018 139 Champlain Road. I guess is that to be approved? What was the motion? I don't have the motion in front of me, sorry.
My apologies for the confusion. This is the portion for the public meeting section, so there would be no motion. The motion, I believe, if Director of Planning can confirm, that would come later in the meeting. This is just the portion for the removal of the H,
Okay.
and then the official plan.
All right. We reverse this script then. All right, so this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider an application to amend the town zoning bylaw to remove a holding H symbol from the property at 139 Champlain Road. And I'll ask the Director of Planning to introduce this application for us and confirm notification and note of any correspondence received, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. We did receive an application to remove the holding H symbol for the property at 139 Champlain Road on December 15th, 2017. The requirement for the removal of the holding symbol is a technical one. It requires that the applicant file and get approval for a site plan for the development of the property, which was granted on January 10th of this year. So we've gone through the appropriate procedures for satisfying the technical requirements for getting a site plan approval. So I'll note that the removal of the holding symbol was mailed out to residents within 120 meters of the subject property, and to date, we've not received any comments with respect to the removal of the holding symbol.
Thank you very much. Does anyone from the audience wish to make comments regarding this application? Seeing none, does any member of council have questions for staff on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, with no further comments, thanks everyone for participating, or not, I guess in this case. And council will consider this bylaw later on in this meeting. Now we move on to 6B. And so, again, this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to provide an opportunity to comment on the new official plan for the town of Penetanguishene. For council, the purpose of this public meeting is not to engage in debate regarding the merits of the official plan project, nor is it intended to be a question and answer period. It is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments and for council members to ask clarifying questions. For our public here tonight, this is your opportunity to speak, and we encourage you to do so. Tonight is to hear your comments with respect to the town's new official plan, and would ask that if any members of the public have comments that any members of the public have comments, they be related to the official plan and its policies. We have a separate agenda item on tonight's Committee of the Whole, where further discussion on the development applications will occur. In accordance with the Planning Act, if a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is approved or an approval is given, you will not be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Municipal Board, and you may not be added as a party to a hearing and you may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. At this point in time, Andrew, I'll get you to speak to this application, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Well, I'll start by saying this is probably a very exciting night for the town. We've been looking at our official plan for a number of years, and we've started and stopped the process on several occasions. So I'm pleased to say that we've taken this project to this point, which is a milestone in this development of this project. So again, it is a public meeting to consider our draft new official plan. We've had this project ongoing with the Planning Department since May of 2016. So through this project, we've done a number of steps, which I'm sure will be highlighted a little later on after my spiel here. But to confirm, notice that we held 2 open houses in February, one on February 7th and one on February 28th. Those open houses were attended by members of the public, and they were free meetings where questions could be asked of staff or our consultant, and they could review the document as well as some information that was provided as part of that open house. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice of the public meeting for tonight's public meeting was given on February 22nd. It was provided in the local newspaper, the Midland Mirror, on the town's website by direct communication with those who had requested to be notified by the project, and any other forms of communication we could. So there was a couple signs that we included this notice of the public meeting on it. So to date, we've not received any specific comments related to this application tonight, although throughout the process there have been a number of comments that we have received that will be reviewed by council.
Thank you very much. And I'll ask our consultant, Greg Bender of WSP, to provide a presentation on the work so far to date. So, welcome.
Good evening, good evening, everyone. Your worship, members of council, both present and on the phone. And everyone here tonight, I don't have a check presentation or something as exciting as that. And I know it's potentially a long night, so I'll try and go through as quick as I can on the official plan and the process. You've probably heard sort of some formal conversation, interesting ways of saying things, and it's because this is following a legislative process under the Planning Act. Excuse me. The town, under the Planning Act, is obliged to update their official plan, at least when this process started, every 5 years. And the intent of updating their official plan is to ensure that it meets various changes in legislation and policy that the province has undertaken over various years. So, as Andrea mentioned, this process has sort of started and stopped a few times, but we are sort of nearing the end of the process. The official plan has been developed based on a number of different phases, which I'll get into. But the point of the presentation is to talk a bit about the project and summarize that very, very quickly for you, to really summarize and identify the comments that have been received, and then what changes have been made in the plan as a result of those, and then what the next steps are. So the project started with creating a vision. Some of you may have been involved with that. That was in 2016. And the intent of that was to establish a vision, goals and objectives, to really provide a basis for developing the official plan. It's to identify what's important in the town so that it may be considered and incorporated into the new official plan in ways of sort of policy narrative. So there was an open house. There were pop-up booths. If some of you attended the May-long weekend market at the waterfront, I was there with a smiling face looking for input on what's important in the community, how they see the town in 20 years, and again, things that should be considered in the new official plan. There was a questionnaire as well as open houses. And if I recall, there was approximately 300 responses provided as part of that process. Some of you may say that doesn't sound like a lot, but I can tell you out of the 18 official plans I prepared, it's a lot, especially for a community of this size. It's quite a bit. So it really says to me that, you know, planning is important. People are very passionate about their community, and our hope and intent was that was captured in the official plan document. So once the vision and goals and objectives were created, we went into phase 2B, which was the foundation study, and really it was studying specific issues that needed to be sort of investigated a bit more detailed, and recommendations provided so that policy could be developed from that. So that was in the fall of 2016. Following that, in phase 3, we did sort of policy directions. Again, it's the next step to sort of identify how policies could be developed so that could be incorporated into the official plan. So phase 4, which was spring 2017 to winter 2018, that was developing the draft official plan and the schedules associated with that, so the maps that go along with the text. And the reason why that took so long is some of you may be aware, as I mentioned, the province updates various pieces of legislation on an ongoing basis. They happen to update the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, within which the town falls, in the summer of 2017. So that sort of put a bit of a stop on the project because we had to consider what those changes meant in the town. So once we understood that, when we had various meetings with the county and the province, the process continued and the draft official plan was updated. February 7th and 28th, as Andrea mentioned, there were open houses to present the draft official plan and to receive any input that people had. And I'll get into the various input that was received. And then phase 5, which is where we are now, it's really, once again, presenting the plan to council and the public, understanding where there may be issues, what your input may be, and then ideally moving forward to council adoption in the near future. So, interestingly enough, the draft was available since July 2017, which is exactly the same time when the growth plan came out. I can tell you there are no significant changes based on the growth plan as it affects the official plan, as was proposed in July and as it appears right now. So there were 18 comments received, 18 submissions from members of the public, County of Simcoe, Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit, various other stakeholders and planning consultants. And just to let everybody know that, yes, tonight's a statutory public meeting, but the commenting period is still open until the end of March. So rather than going through all the various comments that people had, we organized them really into two themes. And as some of you are aware, the Natural Heritage Study was adopted by Council in June of 2017, which formed the basis of the mapping in the official plan. So there were a lot of comments about the natural heritage system strategy and the policies that were in the official plan with respect to perhaps how restrictive they may have been. And as a result of that, because we do have to implement that document, it was adopted by council. So one solution to that is, while not removing the requirements to do additional study, there is added flexibility in the plan to perhaps scope that study depending on what's on the property as identified by experts in that field. So rather than doing a full-blown study for something that may not be there or quite small, it can be scoped. Again, one thing I didn't mention is that the whole intent of this document, as we sort of start, is that it's meant to be flexible. You don't have to go through a detailed official plan amendment for every application that may come across council's desk. While there still will require a planning process, it just wouldn't be a detailed official plan amendment. It would probably be zoning bylaw amendment or any other public process under the Planning Act for, say, plan of subdivision, land division, and so on. So that was one theme. The other theme is rural lot creation. Under the current official plan, no one is permitted to actually create a lot in the rural area. So based on public input, based on discussions with council and staff, it was felt that perhaps that was a bit too prohibitive. So what we had done as a result of that is to allow for some flexibility for some lot creation in the rural area. Again, it has to meet certain criteria as identified by the town. Access, and it can be serviced both privately or on municipal services, but it does allow for additional flexibility. Again, one of those suggestions is if anybody's proposing to sever lots in the rural area, go talk to the planning department and they can guide you through that. So I'm not planning to go through the schedules in too much detail. They're just here for context. Again, these schedules relate to the policy in the document and vice versa. The policies relate to what's on the map. So if you have a neighborhood area, which is really residential, the policies in the document refer to that particular area. Same with commercial and mixed use or downtown or waterfront. For the most part, if anybody's actually wondering, this schedule isn't that different than what you currently have. It might look a little nicer, might be easier to read. But for the most part, the land uses haven't changed significantly. The one that has changed significantly is this schedule. As I mentioned, the Natural Heritage Study that was prepared and adopted by council in June of 2017 really provided the basis for discussing and illustrating where natural heritage features are in the town. So based on this schedule, the green, if I can just call it that, the environmental protection, the way we would call it is you can't touch it. You can't develop there. It's there. It's provincially significant and cannot be altered. This schedule is merely to identify policy overlays, which is a fancy way of saying it triggers additional study. So while many of these features have been identified as perhaps being significant, it doesn't mean they can't be developed. It just means that whomever is proposing development has to go and prepare a study to prove that if they're developing, it's not going to impact the resource, it's not going to impact any wildlife habitat, and so on. But as I mentioned, it's merely to flag what might require additional study. Source protection policy overlays is merely an implementation of an official plan amendment that was done last year or a couple years ago as a result of the source protection that the county was undertaking and that the town undertook. So it identifies wellhead protection areas where essentially source protection or source water needs to be protected. It's a requirement that we provide the schedule, and is there for context if somebody's proposing development in those areas. And lastly, the Schedule C, which is the transportation network. Surprise, no surprise, it identifies where the roads are, where cycling routes may exist or where they may be proposed, where there might be trails. It's to identify really just connections in the town and how people may get around either by vehicle or bike or walking. And as I mentioned, I wanted to provide a fairly high-level summary of what the plan is. This isn't the first time I made a presentation such as this, but just to give people an opportunity of what this project is about and really what it concentrated on. So as I mentioned, tonight is certainly not the only night you can provide additional input. We've been receiving input since July, and that input will continue until the end of March. The proposed date for council to adopt the document is April 11th. And then once that document is adopted by council, it is then forwarded off to the county, who is the approval authority. And they will consider everything and either provide modifications at that point for additional discussion or have the document approved. So that concludes my presentation, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much, Andrea. So at this point, does anybody in the audience wish to make comments related to the official plan and the policies presented? If you do, please grab the podium, state your name and address for the record for the meeting, please. Does anyone wish to come forward? Yes, please.
My name's Mike Cadju. As I was speaking with this gentleman, this official plan is for municipal properties, not private property?
It's Greg, please. Would you like to speak from here? No, you should grab a microphone. Thank you.
I'll just stay up here. So the official plan governs all properties in the municipality, both municipal and private. So if lands are designated residential and they're privately owned or municipally owned, the intent is that they will end up residential over time. I think if that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? I think you had your hand up. Please, if you grab the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
Evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name's Josh Warner, property owner at 268 Church Street. Prepared a bit of a statement here. Haven't submitted it to the town, but will do so after this. As a result of some other issues before the town right now, I've recently become fairly interested in the official plan and policies that surround environmental protection in the area. So speaking specifically to those, I'll just read my presentation here because that's how I do this best. As both a resident of Penetanguishene and someone who cares deeply about the natural environment, I would like to both recognize and voice my support for the many ways in which the new official plan, in face of aggressive growth projections in the town, commits to preserving and protecting our natural environment, which, due to the ever-increasing threats of human-induced climate change, is more important now than ever. This commitment to preserving and protecting our natural environment can be seen in many statements throughout the new official plan, but is perhaps most clearly demonstrated in the way in which the plan has adopted both the results and recommendations of several environmental studies that have been completed for or in the town of Penetanguishene over the past number of years, and the most recent provincial policies that serve to protect natural heritage features and sensitive groundwater areas in Ontario. To begin, the new official plan demonstrates this commitment to our natural environment by adopting the results and recommendations of several environmental studies that have been completed for or in the town of Penetanguishene over the past number of years. These reports include the Penetanguishene Urban Woodland Assessment, the Natural Heritage Study Update, and the Severn Sound Source Protection Area Approved Assessment Report. The first of these studies is the Penetanguishene Urban Woodland Assessment, completed by Severn Sound Environmental Association for the town of Penetanguishene to assess the woodland cover contained in the 25 sites included in this study and to rank these sites in terms of their natural history values and ecological constraints to development. Totaling scores from the study's 12 criteria, out of the 25 sites included in this study, 7 received a gold rank, 12 received a silver rank, and 6 received a bronze rank. Following these results, this study recommends that the gold sites be, quote, retained and protected, that silver sites need, quote, careful consideration for limited development intrusion, and that bronze sites could be improved from, quote, tree planting and or management. Following this, the Natural Heritage Study update was completed, again by Severn Sound Environmental Association for the town of Penetanguishene, to provide an overview of existing natural heritage conditions within the town and identify natural features or area that, quote, may require policy restrictions in the town's official plan. This study clearly identified the 7 sites ranked as gold sites in the Penetanguishene Urban Woodland Assessment as being located in sensitive groundwater areas and as significant woodlands consistent with the provincially recommended criteria in the Natural Heritage Reference Manual. The new official plan has thoroughly adopted these results and recommendations by designating these urban woodland sites as significant woodlands as shown on the Environmental Protection Overlay on Schedule B1 of this plan, which was shown just recently. In addition to the 2 studies mentioned above, as part of the Severn Sound Source Protection Plan, the Severn Sound Source Protection Area Approved Assessment Report completed a vulnerability assessment and issues and threats evaluation of the drinking water system in the town of Penetanguishene. The results of this report, which clearly identify the vulnerability of features such as wellhead protection areas, highly vulnerable aquifers, and significant groundwater recharge areas, have been adopted in the new official plan and detailed on the Source Protection Policy Overlay, which is Schedule B2 of this plan, which was also shown recently. By adopting the results and recommendations of the studies mentioned above, the new official plan clearly demonstrates a commitment to preserving and protecting the natural environment in the town. The next way the new official plan demonstrates its commitment to the natural environment is by adopting the most recent provincial policies that serve to protect natural heritage features and sensitive groundwater areas. The 2014 Provincial Policy Statement, which sets the policy foundation for regulating the development and use of land in Ontario, in its section titled, quote, Wise Use and Management of Resources, starts by stating, quote, Ontario's long-term prosperity, environmental health, and social well-being depend on conserving biodiversity, protecting the health of the Great Lakes, and protecting natural heritage, water, agricultural, mineral and cultural heritage, and archaeological resources for their economic, environmental, and social benefits. Following this statement, the provincial policy statement goes on to restrict any development or site alteration in significant woodlands unless it has been demonstrated that there will be no negative impacts on the natural features or their ecological functions. In the same way, this policy also restricts any development or site alteration in or near sensitive surface water features and sensitive groundwater features, such that these features and the related hydrological functions will be protected, improved, and restored. These restrictions are repeated almost word for word, and as I'll repeat them here, in the new official plan, which states that development or site alteration in significant woodland features shall not be permitted unless it has been demonstrated that there will be no negative impacts on their natural features or on their ecological functions, and also that any development or site alteration in a highly vulnerable aquifer or a significant groundwater recharge area must protect, improve, or restore these features. Again, by adopting these provincial policies that serve to protect natural heritage features and sensitive groundwater areas, the new official plan clearly demonstrates its commitment to preserving and protecting the natural environment in the town. In addition to the above, the new official plan lists, quote, conservation of the natural environment as its first goal and objective, which includes plans to, quote, ensure that development decisions do not impact on natural heritage features and areas, and to, quote, ensure all new land use planning decisions are based on the principles of environmental sustainability. The plan goes on to state that, quote, "the town, county, and province encourage the protection and enhancement of natural heritage features and areas. The significant natural heritage features and areas are lands that represent the legacy of the natural landscape of the area, and as a result, have important and social value, and that, quote, "the town will work to conserve, restore, and enhance them wherever possible." When specifically discussing the town's urban woodlands, the new official plan states that, quote, "the treed urban landscape is an integral part of the town's green infrastructure. Properly planned and managed, the treed urban landscape provides significant ecological, social, and economic benefits, including, but not limited to, improved air and water quality, reduced erosion and stormwater runoff, energy conservation, improved health, enhanced livability, reduced noise, heritage value, and increased property values." In conclusion, I fully support the many ways that the new official plan has demonstrated a commitment to preserving and protecting our natural environment. And while I think that we can, should, and ultimately need to do more to protect the natural environment, the new official plan provides a necessary starting point as we, the citizens of Penetanguishene, and our elected officials, decide what type of town we want to live in and how we want to navigate our uncertain future. The world we know is changing, and we cannot afford to remain ignorant of the effects of human activity on our natural environment. Human-induced climate change is now a certainty, and its impacts on the natural environment, human health, and the economy are accelerating. With this knowledge, we must change our tack, abandoning past practices and old ways of thinking, and chart a new course that respects and values the natural environment, both to mitigate these effects, but also to live with them. Thank you.
Does any other member of the public wish to address council on this particular item? Okay, seeing none. Council, do you have any clarifying questions for either Greg or our planner? Mike or Doug on the phone, do you have any questions, comments for the planner?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I'm good.
Dan, you've got a sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. Greg, I was just wondering if you could give us a little update on our employment lands that were in the plan?
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, there's really no update, but I can give a bit of a synopsis on where we were as to where we are now. So I don't have a point. Is there a pointer? Is it the star? Nope. Oh. That one? There we go. I'm glad we have the best resolution. So under the current official plan, I can show on both screens if it makes it easier for everybody. Under the current official plan, so back up a bit. So as part of the process of developing a new official plan, you have to understand where growth is going to happen over a 20-year time span or time period. So as part of that, you have to understand what the growth forecasts are and where that growth can be accommodated. And as part of the work that we did, we had analyzed residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial lands, and to make sure that Penetanguishene has enough land so that they can accommodate growth over the lifespan of the official plan. So what we found is that currently the town has adequate amount of land for growth for the horizon of the official plan. And so let's park that for a second. At the same time, the town was updating the natural heritage strategy. And as a result of that, as you saw on this schedule here, it changed things. It added new layers to properties that otherwise didn't have layers before. So I don't want to flip back and forth too quickly, but so just employment lands are here. They're all blue, but the ones I'm looking at are right here. So if you look at this schedule, they're essentially green. So that poses two issues. One is that this doesn't mean you can't develop, but it means you have to undertake additional study. And we were of the opinion that you can't identify supply that could be built if it's constrained by a whole ton of significant woodlands. So what we identified is an option that certain lands, while they are currently retained, additional lands needed to be reallocated or put somewhere else to accommodate growth so that they could be developed in the near term and not have to go through a whole bunch of studies that may suggest they can't be developed at all. So that's why we identified, with the assistance of the town staff, this property here. And there was certainly a method to this. It wasn't just arbitrarily picked. One thing we talk about in planning is having it contiguous, so having it nearby or right beside the same type of development, and that's what the intent was. It can be fully serviced, it's on a major road, and it's right across from the existing employment or industrial park. So we've identified that. I won't get into the technical aspects of whether that can be supported or not based on the growth plan, because the growth plan says, the growth plan. So it says that the town should do a whole lot of good things, but it also says what it can't do. And the town actually isn't permitted, so right now it's designated rural in your current official plan. And the growth plan says where your lands are designated rural, you can't do anything with it. You can't change the designation to something else. So what I'm saying is that the county may not approve that as proposed. We've had lengthy discussions with staff, with the steering committee, and with council that while we may disagree with this particular policy that you can't change anything because we feel this is in the best interest of the town, the best interest for its residents to be market ready. So if somebody comes and wants to develop something, you don't have to tell them, well, you can't because you have to do all these studies and you might not actually have any lands in the end. So we thought it would be economically and realistically a good idea to identify different lands. So that's why we did this. So the next step is, once council adopts this document, or when they do, we feel that this is a council and a municipal position, that they feel that these lands should be designated for employment or industrial type uses. And that's the town's position. The county may disagree with that and say, well, we can't based on the legislation, but at least it's a position. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a bit too technical, but the county, the way the growth plan says you can't do anything, it's because the county has to tell you where it's going to go. I have a whole lot of issues with this, but in theory, the town should be making their own decisions on where development should go, not the county. But at least when the county makes that decision in the future, they'll know that these should be designated industrial. Is that fair? Okay. So as proposed, the county may come back and say, no, you can't designate that and put it back to rural. But at least it's a discussion to have with the county.
Thank you. Any other questions for Greg or the planner? Mike or Doug on the phone?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Nope, just double checking. All righty. Good, thank you very much. All right, so then just any concluding comments from either Greg or Angie at this point? Angie, any concluding comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I just want to say thank you to Greg and his team. I think they've done an excellent job over the past 2 years getting us through this, even though the province keeps changing the rules that we get to play with and play within. And I also want to thank the public for coming out to all of our open houses, public meetings, participating in this process, because it's really your opinions and your thoughts with respect to where this town grows and develops that makes this a good plan. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Now to conclude the public meeting. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7, which is adoptions of minutes not already confirmed. It's moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Special council meeting February 14, 2018. Council meeting February 14, 2018. Committee of the whole meeting February 14, 2018. Any comments, errors, omissions? Sorry, Stacey?
I believe this is the portion that you wanted to have the minutes approved separately for the committee of the whole because of Councillor Rawson's pecuniary interest?
No, these are the minutes, so we're not approving. So we're
Okay.
adopting, we're recording what happened at that meeting,
Okay.
which is fine. Councillor Rawson's recorded as
Perfect.
declared, so we're fine
Okay.
with that. But thank you for double checking. Any other comments, errors, or omissions noted on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? Councillor Lauder, are you in favor?
In favor?
Councillor LaRue, are you in favor?
In favor.
Okay, that is adopted and passed. Agenda item number 8, consent agenda. We have none in front of us at this time, so going on to matters for consideration, and we do have 2 items. First one is moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by myself, that a zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding H symbol for the property municipally known as 139 Champlain Road be approved. We discussed this earlier in the evening. Any final comments or questions? See none, I'll go to the Deputy Mayor, please.
I would just comment, Your Worship, that this has been around for some time. I believe it's many years in the working, so glad to see that something might happen on that property.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. In fairness, Councillor Lauder, are you in favor?
In favor?
Councillor LaRue?
In favor?
I'll catch on to this yet. Moving on to agenda item 9B, moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by myself, that this report be received for information and staff be directed to prepare a report for future committee of the whole meeting to address any comments received. And of course, we're talking about this public meeting that just occurred. Council, any other final comments? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor LaRue?
In favor?
Councillor Lauder?
In favor?
Thank you, and that is carried. Moving on to agenda item number 10. And the first one in front of us is moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Rose, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to the Recreation and Community Service section be approved. Does any member wish to pull any of these items for further comment, question, or debate? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor Lauder?
In favor?
Councillor LaRue?
In favor?
And that is carried. Move on to agenda item 10A. It's planning and development, moved by Councillor Levy, second by Councillor Saunders, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to the Planning and Development Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Councillor Rossin?
So, I find the article, but there was 2 pieces I declared conflict at the beginning.
Yep, 6B2, yeah, we need to pull that out.
6B2.
Yep, with the exception of 6B2. I'll change that motion to show that too, Stacy. Okay. So the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to the Planning and Development Services section be approved with the exception of 6B2. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Okay, all in favor then? Councillor LaRue?
In favor?
Councillor Lauder?
Your Worship, I'm just wondering, can I vote since I was not present at the February 14th? Can I vote in favor?
I'll turn to my clerk here to double check. I'm going to say no, but Stacy's smiling, so I could be wrong.
I think that it makes sense that you not vote. I don't think that it's something that we've really drilled down into to degree, and certainly in terms of approving resolutions. But for safety's sake, we could refrain from voting.
Okay, thank you for that. Yep, and moving on to agenda item 10A, which is Transportation and Environmental Services, moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor LaRose, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to the Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? Councillor LaRue?
In favor?
Councillor Lauder?
Once again, I've read and I understand and approve, but
Okay,
not being present.
all right, thank you for that. Moving on to the final item, then I'll get back to 6B2 once I'm waiting for Stacy to get a motion crafted up for me. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to the Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor Lauder? No, again, sorry, you weren't there. I'm finally get on item number 4. Councillor LaRue? Okay, and that is carried. And maybe I'll ask the clerk to read the motion on 6B2, please.
That the Committee of the Whole report of February 14th, item 6B2, being the zoning bylaw amendment application ZA 3/2018, 173 and 177 Robert Street East, be approved.
Okay, mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Mayette, Councillor Levy. Anyone comment, questions? So none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor LaRue? And that is carried, and for the record, Councillor Rawson did not participate. Moving on to agenda item number 11. It's the motions of which notice has previously been given, and we have none in front of us. So moving on to notices of motion, I believe there's 2 coming up tonight, and the first one will come from Councillor LaRose, please.
Thank your worship. I have a motion here, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rawson, and it reads, whereas council voted on April 1st, 2015, that the Main Street design concepts from the section of Robert Street to Beck Boulevard retain status quo with enhancements, and further that the angle parking be maintained from Robert Street to Simcoe Street. And whereas council deems it necessary to reconsider the decision related to the curb alignment on Main Street from Water Street to Wolf Street. So therefore it be resolved that council approve the reconsideration of the decision related to the curb alignment decision.
Thank you very much for that. And just for the public, that'll come up in March 28th for a discussion. Don't discuss the notices of motion tonight. They actually come up 2 weeks from now. Gives council time to consider that. Gives the public time to let us know your thoughts on it. Second notice of motion is from the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, your worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Marshall. Whereas council voted on March 22nd, 2017 to proceed with the reconstruction of 2 tennis courts as originally planned in McGuire Park, and voted on September 27th, 2017 that new pickleball courts be developed north of the bocce ball courts next to the playground. And whereas council deems it necessary to reconsider these 2 decisions related to the reconstruction of the 2 tennis courts at McGuire Park and the location of the proposed new development of pickleball courts, therefore be it resolved that council approve the reconsideration of decisions to reconstruct 2 tennis courts and a separate pickleball court in McGuire Park.
Thank you very much. And that will come up for debate and discussion 2 weeks from now as well. Moving on to considerations of bylaws, and we do have a few of those, and it's moved by the deputy, it's moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that Council of the Town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws, 2018-16 and 2018-17, and that the bylaws be read a first time, deemed to be read a second time, and a third time, and carried. Any member of council have any comments or questions on these bylaws? Seeing none and hearing none, all in favor? And Councillor Leroux? Thank you very much, and that is passed. Moving on to... Okay, Councillor Lauder. All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to agenda item number 14, which is questions periods from the media. Does the media have any questions for us? And from the public, does any member of council have or any member of the public have a question on tonight's council meeting? Okay, seeing none, announcements and inquiries from council. Does any member of council have an announcement or an inquiry in tonight's meeting to share with us? Councillor Lauder, anything to share under announcements or inquiries?
Life is great down here, but I appreciate the electronic participation for sure.
Well, now that begs the question, where's down here?
Where are you, Councillor Lauder?
Right now in Hilton Head, enjoying the sun and get a mission swimming for the pickleball today.
No, okay, now we're off the rails. I'm going to move on to Councillor Leroux. Any announcements or inquiries, Doug?
No, other than the fact that I'm enjoying the sun as well. You should be playing tennis course, and I'm not playing pickles. I'm also time in the pool.
Good for you two guys. All right, so we go to the confirmation bylaw, and it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the confirmation bylaw 2018-18 be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Yeah, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. I need some water. So we'll just adjourn. We'll come back in at 7:10, folks. Sorry, I'll call us back to order here, folks. Okay. I clinked my glass, but then somebody would kiss, so we'll just ask them to come quiet. Stacy, can you double check that Councillor LaRue and Lauder are back to participate, please? Okay, thank you very much. So we've got us all back. So I'll call our Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 8:10. And so the first item in front of us is the approval of tonight's agenda. So can I have a mover and seconder that the Committee of the Whole agenda for March 14, 2018 be approved as presented? Councillor Saunders, Councillor LaRose. Comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Councillor Rawson.
Your Worship, I'm wondering if we can move FCS in front of REC tonight. There's a couple of things on REC that conflict with items on FCS. I'd appreciate discussing them in FCS before REC tonight, please.
Okay, I have no qualms or issues with that. Council, your general agreement? Okay, yeah, we can make that adjustment. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favor of tonight's agenda? And Councillor Lauder? Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest in tonight's session? Okay, seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that spot as we move along, let us know and we'll address it appropriately. Moving on to presentations and delegations from all sections, we have none. Moving on to Section 5A, Planning and Community Development, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. We'll start with the consent agenda. The items listed below: Downtown Improvement Committee meetings, Committee of Adjustment minutes, letter from Severn Sound Environmental Association re-operational changes, Severn Sound Environmental Association 2014 fourth quarter report, temporary garages consultation strategy, correspondence from Harbor View Property Management request for permission for ATV on municipal roads, and notice of study completion County Road 93, Penetanguishene Road. Does anyone want to pull any of those items? Councillor Rawson. Oh, sorry, I'll look for a mover and a seconder first. Moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Saunders. Councillor Rawson.
I'd like to move two items, number 5 and 6, temporary garages, and the correspondence from Harbor View, please.
Sorry, which was the second one?
Item 5 and 6, temporary
5 and 6.
garages consultation, the correspondence from Harbor View Property Management.
Thank you very much. We'll vote on the other, sorry, I'm sorry.
Occupied number 7, notice of study completion, County Road 93, is what the next steps are.
All right. Do we approve the first one? Okay. So all in favor of from 1 to 4? Thank you. Carried. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Lauder? Thank you. Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much, gentlemen. And carried. And now we will go to Councillor Rawson to deal with the issues he's had pulled.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 5 is a temporary garage consultation strategy. I appreciate this brought forward by the planner. My questions regarding the strategy, open house and public and online survey. Just wondering timeline for that. I know I've received several inquiries and other people have had inquiries regarding this. I'm just wondering when can the public expect to be informed and participate in that process?
Thank you very much. I'll ask the planner to respond to that.
Through you, Councillor Levy, to Councillor Rawson. Thank you very much. I was hoping that I was in my report, but perhaps I did not put it in there. I had proposed possible consultation beginning in April, so that we could initiate and bring forward a zoning amendment early spring to get that in place for the summer.
That answer your question?
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And regarding the next issue, oh, sorry, anybody else on that issue? Okay. A mover for that?
So I'll move that.
You'll move that. Seconded it by Mayor Marshall. All those in favor? And Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much. Councillor Lauder? Thank you very much. And carried. Moving on to item 6, correspondence from Harborview Property Management request for permission for ATV on municipal roads. Councillor Rawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this letter speaks to the Highway Traffic Act not allowing Harborview to do their work to be able to clean property for people within the municipality, and they've been stopped by the OPP about that, and that we can pass a bylaw to enable that. So I'd just like to see if we can send this off to the Police Services Board and get their opinion and take on this, and if they can shoot something back on their take on should we enact the municipal bylaw, this has impact on people's ability to work and also to be able to enable people's access, free driveway space. So I'd like to see if Police Service Board could look at that.
I think that's a very good idea.
How about this? I'll move that this item is moved to Police Service Board with any recommendations from them.
Do I have a seconder on that? Thank you, Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, discussion, yes. Councillor Lauder?
I think that's great. I was hoping to have this item pulled. My only thought is that right now, I want to look at this with respect to, as Harborview has presented, ATVs as they require to do work within the town. So I want to make sure that this is not opening up all ATVs. That is a subject that we can get into in the future, but that should be a separate subject altogether.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lauder, and I'm sure staff will take that into consideration. This is simply based on work vehicles and keeping people employed and able to fulfill their work commitments. So, okay, thanks. Where are we? We have a mover and a seconder on that. All those in favor? Oh, we did that already. Councillor Lauder? Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Carried. And on to number 7, notice of study completion, County Road 93, Penetanguishene Road. Deputy Mayor Dubo, you had comments on this?
Yes, very interesting. Glad to see that that is done. The thing that I wondered in the documents that we were provided with, and there's mapping, and there's option 3 and option 4 and option A2, but we don't know what those options are. Is it just what is red in the little square? Maybe Andrea can answer that question. Like in option 4, it says 3 miles of multi-use trails, concrete sidewalks on both sides of the road to improve pedestrian connectivity and crossing opportunities at key intersections. Is that the option that they're presenting for that section of the road?
Andrea, if you would, please. Or Brian, or both.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Levy, through you to Deputy Mayor Dubo. So if you recall, this was done through the Class EA environmental assessment concept. And so through that project, they give different options for how the trail or a bike lane could be accommodated on County Road 93. And at the end of the result of it is what they've come forward with is a preferred option, which they've identified as option C3. And it covers the section, what they've identified in their study is C. So I'll try and probably be a little bit clear on this. So from County Road 93, from where it ends at St. Andrews Drive in the town of Midland, all the way into the to where County Road 93 terminates in the town of Penetanguishene, which is south of Thompson Road. All of that area is called Study Area C, and they proposed in that option for a multi-use offset from the road, multi-use trail being 3 meters in width. So there are some instances where it would be offset quite considerably. Other instances where there are constraints with respect to slope and or drainage, where it would only be offset from the roadway 1 meter. So it is only for a trail, 3 meter trail from the hospital in Midland into the town of Penetanguishene.
Thank you. So we look at this again? Will it come back to us in a different format or for discussion, or this is the discussion and that's it?
So there's a commenting period up for 30 days as of last Thursday, I think is when it went out. So you have 30 days to comment on the proposed options and they could reconsider it. Once this goes in, it actually will be a County of Simcoe project, and they will do the detailed design and given budget could proceed with construction of it as based on this study. So we will not have another chance to review whether or not we feel a multi-use trail is appropriate beside the road in County Road 93. The results of the study have concluded or recommended that it be offset from the road allowance itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Saunders, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to the mayor. back some time ago, you made a comment that you were attempting to have the speed limits along this section of Highway 93 reduced. I see no reference in the report to the reduction of the speeds, and if we're going to expand the usage of that particular stretch of highway, I think it is very essential that some thought be given to the whole issue of speed limits.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So that will be coming to County Council very shortly. So there is a recommendation on the speed limit coming to Council and a recommendation on the intersection. So that conversation will happen, and Council will be privy to that, as will our citizens.
Thank you very much. Any further questions on that issue? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Louder? Thank you very much. Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much, and carried. That concludes the consent agenda. We're going to move into matters for consideration, and before I do that, I'm going to hand the chair back to Mayor Marshall, which frees me up to be part of the discussion on this. So, Mayor Marshall, if you would be so kind as take the chair back.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Normal circumstance would see the vice chair manage this, but Mike's down and on the telephone. So, anyways, I'll read out the motion, looking for a mover and seconder. Recommended action that council direct staff to coordinate further public consultation in the form of a public information session on the draft plan of subdivision application Pen-sub-2013-01 and a zoning bylaw amendment ZA 8/2015. And the council direct staff to advise the proponents of the public information center session on the draft plan of subdivision application Pen Sub 2013-01 and zoning bylaw amendment ZA 8/2015 and request their attendance. Mover and seconder, get this on the floor. Councillor Rawson, seconder, Councillor Rose. I believe that somebody was looking for a friendly amendment on this. So can you, Andrea, I think part of this is that you found that there was some funding available to assist that council should be aware of?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. If you'll give me some leave, I'll just make a couple comments about this before council starts their deliberations.
Sorry, I'd rather get to friendly here so that we can buy in, and then I'm happy to have you speak.
Certainly. Okay, so I do ask if council has the motion in front of them for a further public information session. When we prepared this report, I went further into our budget and realized that there's $2,500 in a capital budget item called shovel-ready OPs and zoning bylaw amendments. I'd ask that council consider adding that as a friendly amendment to this motion so that if a public information session is brought forward, that we have some funds to do it in a pleasant manner and involve people and do some unique kinds of consultation.
Thank you. Are the mover and seconder okay with that? Both are okay? Thank you very much. So then the motion in front of us is including that adjustment to $2,500. I'll ask the planner to open up the conversation, then I'll open up the floor to council.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I want to thank everybody for all their comments and public feedback we've heard when considering this application. I think as everybody realizes, this is a very complex application. It has a number of layers, both provincial legislation, upper tier policies, and as well as local policies, and trying to figure out where this application fits in considering all those levels of government and their involvement through the passage of 5 years when this application was first submitted is complicated. So I appreciate that it's difficult for the public as well as council to understand what's applicable here and what's not. I also want to congratulate all the residents of the town who have been engaged in this conversation, doing their own due diligence, reading the reports, reading the studies, and getting themselves informed. I congratulate them on that. I think as council, you'll all know that we rarely have had a lot of engagement and a lot of planning work that we've done. So this is a really nice thing for me to see and to have this conversation with the public. So again, we have an engaged community, and I think we need to take advantage of that. They're informing themselves, and they want to be involved to make sure that the town makes the right decision when it comes forward to developing our town. And as a professional planner, I just want to note that I have a process that must be followed, and I can't make a recommendation unless I'm satisfied that all the information is clear and is correct, And so in that case, I haven't made a recommendation whether or not to approve or refuse this application. I think there's some more discussion that can be had with the community about the importance of urban woodlands, but also where the town is going to grow and develop over the next number of years. We've gone through our official plan review, and it was noted there that there are a number of lands that have constraints, and not constraints is probably the best word, but have natural heritage elements to them. So we really need to look closely at those lands to figure out what's appropriate for our town. And so through additional consultation, I hope that we can find a way to get there so that everybody knows where development's going to happen and what their criteria for it. I also just want to note that I look at things positively. I look at this as an opportunity that we have with our residents to really talk to them about what's happening in our town and where development's happening and what it's going to look like in the next 20 years. From the maps and the schedules there, I mean, we've heard that the province has changed the rules quite significantly of where we can grow and develop and how that's going to look. And for a lot of this, it hasn't come to the town of Penetanguishene. I mean, the first growth plan was 2006, and so we haven't yet felt the impacts of the growth plan in the town. I think we're starting to feel that now. And so I really think it's important that we do this the right way. We talk to our citizens who really wanted to listen and really wanted to offer their and share their experiences and opinions with the town. And for those reasons, I would recommend and stand by my recommendation that we do some additional consultation before moving ahead with any decision with respect to these applications.
Thank you for those comments. I'll look to the mover if he wants to start the discussion, or otherwise I'll call for general comments. Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. I don't intend to repeat everything that was presented in the reports and by our residents in their letters. I think most people in town are very, very well informed. Those who want to be informed are very well informed about this issue. We know about the valuable habitat provided. We know about the endangered species that make their home there. We know that it's a very valuable, mixed, mature forest. Some of the trees, many of the trees are very rare to our area. The same goes for the species of birds. There are many, and some of them are not often found in our area. So there I go. I said I wasn't going to repeat everything that we all know or should know, but I would like to, however, thank those who have followed this proposal, who have read the background studies, attended the public meeting and the Preserve and Protect public meeting. Also thanks to the many who are with us tonight and to those who are watching from home. Thank you for your many letters submitted in opposition to the development. I will most definitely vote against the Queen's Court proposal. As Chair of Planning and Community Development, I work hard to see growth in the town of Penetanguishene. I'm proud of my record and this council's record in working towards this goal, not only for residential properties, but also in our employment lands. We will continue to work through our official plan update to increase density in our downtown core, to increase housing with the new secondary suite and secondary dwelling legislation. Many years ago, the late great Bob Sullivan, a former mayor of Penetanguishene, used to tell me, of course we want development, but we want good development. That would be my message here tonight. We want development that protects our urban forest, our wildlife habitat, and a vibrant, healthy forest that includes many species that are rare in our area. This land includes a steep slope now covered in trees. Even with the diverse plant life, flooding of the properties on Fox Street is an annual problem. With the forest removed and the land covered in asphalt and buildings, I can't imagine what would happen during an extreme weather event. Our climate is changing, and everything we do in planning must be done with that change in mind. We can no longer plan for the 50-year storms or the 100-year storms. We must plan now for catastrophic events. Those are only some of my reasons for opposing this development. I hope my colleagues share my concerns and vote for a healthy, sustainable future for our beautiful town. Thank you very much.
Debbie? Thank you, Councillor Levy. Any other member of council have comments or questions? Councillor Saunders, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, I'll go Councillor Saunders first, and I'll get back to you, Mike.
I notice in the report that we received that there are other options that are being presented, and yet there's no mention of them in the motion. And I'm wondering before we decide one way or another on the staff recommendation, should we also be considering the other options and discounting them if we wish, rejecting them if we wish. But I think out of courtesy to our staff, we should at least consider their work.
The consideration of our work would be in the report provided, and we do have a live motion on the floor at this point in time, so I don't disregard your comments, but we do have a live motion there. If this gets defeated, of course, the other ones can come into play. I'm looking to the clerk to make sure I've got that ball bouncing right. Thank you very much. Councillor Lauder, you had comment?
There are two very different opposing sides being presented, and both are equally important. However, it's council's job to govern in the best public interest of the entire town of Penetanguishene. In reading the various reports, the EIS, the addendums, the peer reviews, it seems that great improvements have been made in the development strategy, but as stated by Beacon Environmental, and personally as I feel, more work needs to be done. The current development plan has several draft plan approvals embedded, especially the MNRF decision regarding the investigation of bats. That's not acceptable to me. So basically, currently we have had a public consultation, and at that time, and since that time, our residents have loudly voiced their opinion, and as Councillor Levy has stated, they have been very, very informative and very knowledgeable with their thoughts. Staff has diligently documented all of our residents' concerns. Now, Council has heard from our residents, but we have not heard from the developers. And I was actually anticipating that there was going to be some sort of response. They left the public hearing saying that they have heard and there were issues. So I would like to hear a response from them. I share many of the concerns that were raised, and I do need answers before I can proceed with this project. So while staff is recommending a further public consultation that may be beneficial, I understand that the developers may not want to attend such an affair. So our town's residents, they have spoken. They've spoken loudly. And now I feel the developers need to respond and respond very favorably before council, or especially Councillor Lauder, can make any decision in their favor. Right now, as Councillor Levy says, I am opposed to this opportunity.
Thank you for those comments. In terms of the council's ability to direct the developer to engage with council in consultation, that's outside of our scope of authority or autonomy. So, but Andrew, did you want to speak to any of that? But my interpretation would be the developer needs to engage on their own volition, if you will, it's just like our citizens. Our citizens can choose to participate or not. The developers are in the same boat. Just make sure we've got that right.
Through you, Your Worship, that's correct. The developer can choose not to or participate in further consultation. And I was remiss in my introduction to note that we have heard from the consultants on behalf of the developer on Monday that they are no longer interested in participating in further consultation. That doesn't mean the town can do our own consultation. It just means they won't be participates in that consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Saunders, and then the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My earlier comment still holds. I think it's inappropriate and improper for us to be dealing just with one of the options that's put forward. Option number 2 recommends that the application for draft plan of subdivision file be refused, which is what all of you have been requesting, I believe. And I think it's important that that particular option to refuse the application be considered by this council. I have been convinced by the input we've heard from people in this community that this is not what the community wants. It's not in the interest of our short-term or long-term future for this community. And so if you can find a way, Mr. Mayor, to broaden the consideration that is before us, so it is not just the staff recommendation that receives consideration, I would appreciate that very much because it's my belief that option number 2 should receive equal consideration around this table.
So the, so I'll look to the clerk for some discussion, but at the end of the day, we do have a live motion, and the fact of the matter is, if this motion is defeated, we can consider not approving the application or approving. If this motion is approved, it will come back to council, and again, we can be in that disapprove or approve position. But I'll look to the clerk for some guidance. I appreciate Councillor Saunders' opinion here. Just looking for rules of engagement.
Absolutely. In this case, procedurally, you do have a mover and a seconder for the motion that's on the floor. Certainly, if that motion was defeated, it would give an opportunity for a member of council to move another option within the report. Before this motion was moved and seconded, it would have been another opportunity if a member of council felt that they wanted to move one of the other motions. But absolutely, you're right. If this motion is carried today, it's certainly, I'm imagining, would still be an option within the Director of Planning's report to approve or deny any further action on this file.
Thank you. Okay, I'll rule that we're play with the motion that's live in front of us. Councillor Leroux, did you want to make any comment?
Full application for the and as everyone knows, I'm a hometown boy, and I have seen the town grow since my young age, over some probably 60 years. I've looked at this entire subdivision. I cannot see it as a medium or low density. We had Beacon Environmental do research for us, and they bring up 6 very important parts: wetland protection, stormwater management, woodland protection, construction on steep slopes, species at risk. There was a mention at the time of the 30-meter buffer, and that was completely ignored in the recommendations of the planners. They also talk about the wellhead protection area and groundwater recharge area, a highly vulnerable aquifer. They say there's no risk to the quantity of water, but there's absolutely no mention, more importantly, to the future quality of the water. So at this time, I cannot see where this thing will go any further than I would not support it.
Does any other member of council wish to comment before I call the vote? Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is certainly one of the biggest issues, I guess, we've had to face in this 4-year term. I do support further consultation. I feel that I didn't like what we saw, but I think we as council have to give the developer an opportunity to make change. If they don't make change, then that's another story. But I do think that to avoid perhaps going to the OMB board as a council and it costing us thousands of dollars, I think we have to do our due diligence and allow more consultation and more information to come forward. As I said, I didn't like what I saw either. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think we have to give the people that own that property and the developer an opportunity to see if there can be change. So anyway, that's my position, but I also would like to thank the public for their due diligence and what they have done. Certainly, you've brought forward a lot of information, and I thank all of you for that.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from council on this one? CL?
Your Worship, I just thought I'd piggyback off of what our Director of Planning alluded to with respect to notification we received earlier this week from the developer. Certainly the comment that we've received from the developer through their party is that they are not willing at this point to engage any further in consultation. What I would suggest to committee is that it won't be short of staff attempting to work with them and attempting to engage them in the consultation process. Certainly that's the position they've taken today. Should committee wish to proceed with the option to further consult, certainly staff will, attempt to work with the developer to engage them either directly or indirectly, so as to ensure that committee and ultimately council has all the information and all the options in front of them.
Thank you for those comments. Any other final comments before I call the vote in this one? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Could I request a recorded vote?
Sure, we already got 2 recorded already, so we must get the other 7.
I understand.
Voted on. Ready, please. Thank you.
Sure, I'll read it one more time, Councilor LaRue. So the recommended action, the council, so it's moved by Councilor LaRose, seconded by Councilor Rawson. The council directs staff to coordinate further public consultation in the form of a public information session on the draft plan of subdivision application PEN SUB 2013-01 and zoning bylaw amendment ZA 8 2015. And the council directs staff to advise the proponents of the public information session on the draft plan of subdivision application PEN SUB 2013-01 and zoning bylaw amendment ZA 8 2015 and request their attendance, and that council utilize the $2,500 identified in our capital budget to fund the information sessions. And Stacy, a recorded vote was called by Councillor Saunders, please.
Thank you, Mayor Marshall. Councillor Saunders. Councillor LaRue. Was that no? No. Okay. Councillor Rawson.
In favor?
Councillor Mayotte.
Oppose?
Councillor Rose. Councillor Levy.
Opposed?
Councillor Lauder. Deputy Mayor Dubois.
In favor.
Mayor Marshall.
In favor.
The motion is defeated.
Thank you very much. So I'll turn to Councillor Saunders for one of the other recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move recommendation number 2, which is that the whole project be canceled.
Seconder for that, Councillor Levy. Comments? Councillor Rawson?
And keeping the spirit, let's do another recorded vote.
Councillor Rawson has called a recorded vote. Does any other member of council have comments? Deputy Mayor?
If we refuse this application at this point, what's the next steps? Is that OMB?
Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Dubois. So the decision tonight is just a recommendation, so it would be ratified in 2 weeks at the next council meeting, so March 28th. Once a decision is reached by council, then there is a notice of a decision that is given to everybody who is part of this project, so anybody who commented as well as the developer itself. They have 20 days within that notice of decision in which to file an appeal. Right now, there's some changes going on provincially as to whether that appeal would go to the Ontario Municipal Board or the new Local Planning Appeals Tribunal. So it depends on that date of an appeal being submitted. So that would be the next steps. Whether or not something gets submitted, I couldn't tell you.
Thank you.
And I think just for the audience, so I think there's a swing date of April the 3rd. If there's an OMB application presented before April the 3rd, it follows the old rules of engagement that the province had. Post April the 3rd, it undertakes a new process, so some of that timing comes into play as well. The cost of these applications are tens of thousands of dollars, right? So the decision we're making here could cost the municipality a fair chunk of change as we go down this path. But if that's the will of council, that's the will of council, and that's where we'll proceed. So recorded vote called by Councillor Saunders, unless anybody has any other comment. Oh, Councillor Rawson called it, so beg your pardon. Thanks, Doug.
Just to confirm, I'm going to read what option 2 is within the report. That the application for draft plan of subdivision, file number PEN sub 2013-01, be refused for the property of 221 Fox Street, and that the application for zoning bylaw amendment ZA 8/2015 be refused for the property of 221 Fox Street. The recorded vote, Councillor Rawson.
In favor?
Councillor LaRue.
In favor.
Councillor Mayette. Councillor Levy.
In favor?
Councillor Lauder.
In favor.
Councillor LaRose. Councillor Saunders. Deputy Mayor Dubois. Mayor Marshall.
Opposed.
The motion is carried.
Much. Alrighty, folks, so we're going on to the rest of the agenda, but maybe we'll just take a 3-minute recess unless you want to stay for the riveting finish of this meeting. We'll let you off the hook for tonight. By the way, and I appreciate everybody's input in this. I know a lot of hard work went into it. And I can tell you it's the role of the warden at the county of Simcoe with 16 municipalities. You know, community engagement is important. How you've gone about to educating yourself, digging in deep, articulating your positions were well thought out. You know, so I appreciate all that. You know, and I can tell you that, you know, part of my fear, as I mentioned before, is the costly next steps that may occur out of this of the OMB. Aside from that cost, well done to all of you, and congratulations for stepping up and stepping in. Thank you. righty, council, I'll call us back to order. And we're still on planning and development, item number B2, and I'll turn the chair back over to Councillor Levy for this.
Easy for you to say. Okay. Request for draft plan extension, Pen Sub 2006-01, Whitewater Holdings, Inc. Recommended action that the 3-year extension be granted to the draft plan subdivision approval pursuant to Section 51 of the Planning Act to May 31st, 2021 for the Whitewater Holding Limited subdivision at 40 Thompson Road, file number Pen Sub 2006-01. If you'll recall, this was, first of all, do I have a mover for this? Councillor Rossin, a seconder, Councillor Mayette. I just wanted to state that this, remind folks, this is a delightfully tree-free, habitat-free chunk of land that has subdivision approval, or, yeah, draft plan of subdivision, and the person who owns it is actively trying to sell. I spoke to the director last week about it, voicing my concern that nothing was done. She assures me there's something in play as we speak. So I think given our decision earlier tonight, giving this extension certainly makes good sense. I wish it were already on the book, so to speak, with a plan in place, but let's hope that will come along very shortly. Any questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Louder? Thank you. Councillor LaRue? Thank you very much, and carried. Thank you. We now go to referrals to upcoming agenda. Staff, does anyone have any questions, changes, additions they'd like to see on future agenda items? Seeing none, we don't vote on that, do we, Jerry? Oh, we do, okay. A mover? Councillor Rossin, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and all those in favor? And carried, thank you very much. Question period from the media and the public? They're busy. Okay. Renee and Karen, any questions? Okay. So that's it for me. Thanks. Back to Mayor Marshall, and thank you for covering for me earlier.
No worries. So as we go in T&E first or RCS first? T&E, over to Councillor Rossin, please.
Thank you, Worship. 6A is a consent agenda. It's recommended the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration, be received for information. We have 2 items. The Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund top-up application component for 2017, and the Midland Time Machine Transit Ridership monthly updates. Any member wish to remove any of these for further discussion? Councillor Ruhr-Lauder.
Is there a lot of people speaking in the background? Because we're getting a lot of background stuff here.
It's just people from the public session from planning. Councillor LaRue will just have to bear with it. We'll have a mover on these consent items. Councillor Mayotte, seconder. Councillor Rose. Further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. 6B is matters for consideration. First item is Southgate Division Phase 1. Initial acceptance of the municipal services. It's recommended that the initial acceptance of the following infrastructure within Phase 1 of the Southgate subdivision be approved for stormwater conveyance system, sanitary and water service removals. A mover. Councillor Rose, seconder. Deputy Mayor, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And sorry, Councillor Roux?
Yeah, in favor.
And Councillor Lauder?
In favor?
And that is carried. Number 2 is the award of Navy Lane Sewage Sanitary Pumping Station Upgrades Project. It's recommended that the tender submitted by Robert B. Somerville Company Limited for $1,018,080 be approved. A mover? Councillor Rose. A seconder? Councillor Mayotte. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And Councillor LaRue?
In favor.
Councillor Lauder?
In favor.
That's carried. Referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. It's recommended that Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Do any members have any to add, edit, remove? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I note that there are a number of items, future agenda items on this agenda that are coming forward in quarter one, 2018. Now, 2018 first quarter is done at the end of this month. And I would ask through you to our CIO, is it realistic that these items that are designated as quarter one are in fact going to come forward at the next meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. I'll actually look to Brian. There's only one item on this. It's Ojibwe Landing update Q1 of 18. Brian, do you have an update on the time frame for that item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a report coming forward for the Ojibwe Landing site characterization, Phase 1 and Phase 2 reports coming to the next Committee of the Whole on March 28th.
Q1, perfect. Thanks, Brian. Any other further items? We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Lauder? And Councillor LaRue. Question period from the media and public. Seeing none, back to you, Your Worship. No, Councillor LaRue is for media and public.
It's a Lauder. Councillor
Lauder, yeah, sorry, no.
Thank you.
No, Stace, no, it's for media and public. You can't go. Sorry, Mike.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just thinking.
No, Mike, we're on to RCS. The question, this is for media and public. Your opportunity was when the items were on the table. So we'll turn it over to the chair, over to Councillor Mayotte for Recreation and Community Services.
Your Worship?
Yes.
I requested earlier if we can do FCS before Rec tonight, please.
Oh, it was FCS. I beg your pardon. Sorry. Okay, I knew there was one. I thought it was a. So I'll turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor then for FCS first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under consent agenda, recommended actions that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. 1, correspondence from the County of Simcoe rebuilding a senior campus. 2, correspondence from the Town of Essex, school properties. And number 3 is a request for sponsorship from La Clé de la Baie, La Soirée Saphir, I believe is how that is said. Does anyone want to pull any of these items? I would like to make a comment on 1, and actually I want to speak to 2 as well, and 3, all of them. The first one, I just wanted to, yes, I'm going to pull all 3.
And you're going to step out of the chair, are you?
Yes, how would you like to take over? I keep forgetting of doing that. Council, Committee of the Whole. Councillor Saunders always reminds me of that.
You got me excited, my computer's acting up here.
Ah. So you're going to take over?
Well, if my computer cooperates and it's not.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, perhaps you could step in.
Sure, glad to help. Where's my, I've got my pages mixed up. So we got consent agenda items. So the first one is correspondence from the County of Simcoe building a seniors campus. So Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, I just wanted to explain that this is a white paper on how Georgian Village came about. There's a lot of inquiries from other jurisdictions within our province and outside of our province. And this was developed so that when they do have visitors, this is a white paper that they can just hand out and explains everything. So if anyone has a chance to have a look at it, it's great information. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, so I'll need a mover and seconder to receive that for information. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Mayotte. Sure. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And go on to the next item that the Deputy Mayor pulled, which was communication correspondence from the Town of Essex regarding school properties.
Yes, I would like to put a motion forward that we support this resolution that has come from the Town of Essex. It is in reference to schools that come up for sale and how they should be made available to the public or to municipalities for $1. I suppose it's a dream, but I think we should show support, so.
Okay, maybe I'll ask the clerk to maybe pull up that motion, because I think a lot of members of council don't have their computer onto that particular item. So Stacey will give you a second to pull it up so you can read the actual motion from the Town of Essex.
Would you like me to read that motion?
Yes, please, thank you.
It was that the town of Essex send a request to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Roma, and all other municipalities in Ontario requesting that when a school board makes decisions to close schools, that they have to offer the building to the local municipality for $1.
Thank you very much. So mover and seconder to get that on the floor. We get the mover as the deputy mayor. Anyone want to second that motion? I'll second it to put it on the floor. Comments and questions? I think Councillor Saunders had your hand up for comment.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. When school boards close schools, there is a very legally defined process by which they attempt to put the school building out into the community, and there is a pecking order by which the building must be offered. So my point is that it really isn't going to matter a whole lot whether or not we pass this recommendation, because what is necessary is to convince the provincial government, whether the present one or the new one, if there's a new one, that the legislation needs to be changed. And by way of editorialization, unloading buildings for $1 was the way it used to be. And then the government changed that process because they felt they were giving away very, very wealthy pieces of property, expensive pieces of property, that had tied up millions of taxpayer dollars. And in some cases, they're going to organizations that could well afford to buy them, and they're getting a real bargain. So in the final analysis, the legislation was changed in order to try and recover market value from excess schools. And the town of Essex can do as it wishes, but I don't think they've got a snowball's chance of this going anywhere.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments on this one? Jeff, our CEO, Lee's Prairie.
Through your worship, I just wanted to provide some context or some comments or some discussion that I've been a part of with respect to this, and that is, I think the argument has been made that given the buildings have been paid for by public tax dollars, that I think where the town of Essex is headed here is if they offer to the municipality, and identify some sort of criteria that, if it stays in the public hands, that's kind of the ultimate goal here, I believe. I recognize private sector is a kind of another piece of the conversation, but any conversation or discussion I've been a part of is, and certainly the town of Essex is pushing that it stay within the public hands and be offered to the municipality as opposed to private sector.
Thank you for those comments. Comments? I'm going to actually support the deputy mayor in this one. The coming to the municipality for $1 makes sense to me. I appreciate the school boards and maybe even the province position that these assets need to get market value, but they're already purchased and bought with taxpayer dollars. I'd argue that PSS has been paid for many, many times by the taxpayers, let's say, of Penetanguishene. So to offer that to us for $1, I think is fair and reasonable, and allows us to pursue that. I do know that Karen Petrie, who's the Premier's advisor, senior advisor, policy advisor on community hubs, is actually pushing this conversation as well. So I'll support the mayor, or the deputy mayor in this one, but I certainly appreciate the wise experience of Councillor Saunders, who's been there and done that before we have. Okay. Any other comments, questions for a call for the vote? Okay, all in favor of supporting this motion? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, sorry, Mike and Doug. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Sorry about that. Last one is the request for sponsorship from Le Clé de la Baie, Rue de la Souris Saphir. Hopefully I said that right.
Yes, Your Worship, I didn't see what sponsorship they're asking for. I just got a blank when I looked at what was supposed to be. So I wonder if somebody could explain what they were asking for.
Is there a dollar amount on that, Stace? Carrie?
When I went to it, it's a blank. It's a blank
Okay, so maybe I'll ask that we actually just defer this to the next council meeting, and then we can get that information in front of council, if that's okay with council. So motion to defer. Okay. All right, so we'll defer this to the next council meeting if I get a mover and seconder to do that. Councillor Ross and Councillor Mayat, and there's no motion or debate on deferral, so all in favor? And that is carried. Mike and Doug? Thank you very much. So then turning the chair back to the Deputy Mayor on item number B, which is matters for consideration.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, our first one is smoking on town-owned property. Recommended action that council approves option 2 to support the increased education and awareness campaign of the Smoke-Free Ontario Act regulations. A mover? Moved by Councillor Mayette, seconder? No seconder for this. Thank you, Councillor Leroux. Discussion? Yes, Your Worship.
I certainly support the motion. I think it's a wise option. We could throw some fines out there, but as Councillor Rawson reminded us, you can put some dollar figures out there. But if you don't have the bylaw enforcement to support collecting those fines and proceeding that way, so I think this is a common sense next step. So certainly in around the splash pad in our Rotary Park in particular, where I see young children barefoot running in bathing suits and people are smoking. So I'd like to see some signage there that and I'd leave it to staff to where the signs go. But I think we need to better protect our children in terms at least of putting proper signage up there as loud and proud says, don't smoke in our park or wherever this facility may be. So I'll vote in support of this motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Number 2, delegation of powers. Oh, yes, Councillor Louder and Councillor Leroux. Thank you. Number 2, delegation of powers. The recommended action that the delegation of powers, the restricted acts of council staff report, be received for information, and that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw delegating authority to the chief administrative officer from July 27th, 2018 to December 12th, 2016. A mover? And 2018, sorry. Moved by Councillor Levy. Seconded by Councillor Saunders. Discussion. This is pretty straightforward. It is in reference to the lame duck period. So if there's no discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. On the phone, Councillor Louder. Councillor Leroux. Thank you. We will move to number 3, service delivery review, roadmap for that. Recommended action that the CAO report 18-01 regarding the roadmap for the service delivery review be received for information, and that committee recommends to council that staff proceed with the processes as outlined in this report, in that the committee recommends to council the approval of the attached service delivery reviewed roadmap. Moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Discussion? Seeing none. Yes, Councillor Rawson. Councillor Louder, you wanted to comment?
Yes, thank you. My only comment is that I'd like to see the CAO report to the Council of the Whole, Committee of the Whole, on a quarterly basis rather than semi-annual. I think the semi-annual is a little long, and I'd like to see a little bit more updates.
Councillor Rawson wanted a question, and then we'll ask the CAO to report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked for the FCS before rec tonight because in rec we have 2 recommendations for more staffing, and the report speaks heavily on the staffing report. So I just thought it'd be appropriate we talk this one out first. Rec has had some increased requests for staffing. The basis is we have more plants, we have more recreational facilities, the tables are heavy to set up and the like. So there's some decisions we need to make, but when I look at this service delivery review, one thing I really appreciate in the service delivery review roadmap from Blackline was outsourcing recreation programs to a third party. And that's put in the long-term plan, and I'm not saying that's the right thing or not the right thing, but we're getting increased needs to relook at things and increased need to put more dollars into rec. But we have a real opportunity here to have some cost savings, and it was very clear during Blackline's review that we're not going to diminish or decrease our service level. And many municipalities are going that way, where the YMCA's example would be the deliverer of recreational programs. So this has a potential savings of $285,000, and we have had so many recreation-related increases to our budget. I don't know why we're looking at this long term. Like, let's look at this now, and let's see where we can save some money and then reshuffle some positions where it's appropriate. But, you know, a lot of what we're talking about in rec is programming and service, and here's a great opportunity that I think we need to look at right here and right now. You know, we put some money aside in the staffing report that would come back to us. You know, another one on here is about a communications person at $60,000. I'm not fully supportive of that as it is today. So I guess for clarity from us, are we just saying the roadmap, go ahead and do it? Or are we going to sit here and go yes or no, or what's the decision? But if Jeff's intention is just this is the plan, he's going to do it in this format, I think we need to have some serious conversation with that. If the long-term plan is 2021, I would love to see that happen short-term now. There's some really good process opportunities that we see in here. For example, the online registrations and the like. But we have a $280,000 opportunity here that will not affect our recreation programming. I think it deserves us really to evaluate that instead of putting more dollars at recreation. Let's look at things differently. So I guess for clarity, Madam Chair, I don't understand what the point of this report is other than it's the roadmap, but is the roadmap to approve each item? Is it to move the format of the items? Or is it just an FYI? Are we going to go through these individually and say we all agree? So for example, communications, staff may go do that, and then when they come to present, are we in favor or not in favor? I think we need to look at them in that element. So if we are, I'd like to talk about the planning, the third-party recreation programming, and can we look at moving that now?
Thank you for your comments. I first would ask the CAO to comment, and then I will turn to our Director of Recreation after.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for your inquiry, Councillor Rawson. Maybe I can clarify the process a little bit, and I apologize if it wasn't crystal clear in my report. My intention from a process perspective is Blackline has identified a number of these opportunities, 18 of which they've identified as core opportunities for open session council or committee to entertain. Albeit they have spent time doing the service delivery review, and in these cases they've actually presented project overview documents. From my perspective, it's very common in reviews or studies like this that staff would then have an opportunity to take the opportunities or the recommendations that the consultant has put forth and really kind of sink their teeth into them and provide council, or in this case through committee of the whole, with the full gamut, with the full picture, considering what the consultant has identified, but recognizing there's much more to each of these opportunities than simply what the consultant has brought forth. So my intention is, and I'll maybe walk you through the roadmap. My intention with this roadmap is to get some consensus from committee in terms of how we've proposed from a staff perspective the timing, as well as the final column, which I've called authority, but ultimately, is it a governance recommendation, or is it an operational administrative recommendation or opportunity that we will look at and proceed or not proceed at a staff level? So in terms of, so I hope that clarifies the process. Ultimately, with each of these, what I intend on doing is, in the case of the short-term opportunities, as an example, we're coming back to committee the whole with a full analysis of each of those short-term opportunities and identifying all the options or all the information that we believe committee needs to make a truly an informed decision. So that's what my intention is. I think in fairness, I think council needs to hear from our senior managers who are the experts, who are the professionals. And in some cases, and I've been through a few of these now, in some cases, some of the opportunities that have been brought forth by Blackline simply can't be done, either legislatively or potentially from a resource perspective, or in some cases, we may be able to take it actually a step further and actually realize more benefit or more gain from a municipal perspective. So from a process perspective, hopefully that clarifies what, and then committee would be in a position to make an informed decision, and we could go north, south, east, or west. In terms of how we've structured or proposed the staff timing, we've through senior management team have done this based on workload and based on what we know is on the horizon over the next 1, 2, and 3+ years. Certainly willing to entertain or consider shuffling some of these if it's an appetite of committee to make some of them a higher priority than others. But I just want to be cognizant that we're an organization with a relatively lean complement, and I just want to be cognizant that we're not overburdening senior management and ultimately filtering down through staff and front-end loading a lot of these opportunities. So hopefully that provides some clarification.
Thank you for your comments. Follow-up, Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate CEO's comments. I would like to move item 18 on here, the outsourced recreation programs to third party. I'd like to make that a short-term plan that CEO can work with his staff to see what does that look like. I know at our staffing delivery review, that one I looked at favorably. I think there was a lot of positive energy about that, and it provides some great opportunity and will free up staff resources. And it clearly shows that and demonstrates that with a $285,000 savings. So I personally would like to look at that in the short term and let Jeff and the staff come back to us with what that looks like.
I might ask a clarifying question. I think a lot of what has been asked for in the recreation agenda is labor in reference to parks maintenance and arena maintenance. Really didn't say very much about actual programming. So I wonder if our recreation director could clarify that for me.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yes, I can speak directly to those reports now, if you like, but the one report.
Well, just very briefly, perhaps, because we can get into the discussion when it actually comes up. But most of your asks are for labor, is that not correct?
Yes, absolutely. Front line, front level staffing requests. One for some support at the arena, and the other, the bulk, is for gardening support to maintain all the additional gardens space that have been added to the town in the last few years.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, do you have anything to add to Councillor Rawson's ask about perhaps moving, not that it will help for the 2018, but perhaps for future? Like he's suggesting that you look at that whole 200 and what did you, the dollar figure that you're mentioning?
I'm just suggesting the rec programs, item 18 is in 2021. In the long term, I'm suggesting let's move it to the short term.
And the short term would be?
Well, that's Jeff. On here, he's got short terms 2018.
Mr. CAO. Oh, and then Councillor LaRose.
Through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately I haven't had a chance to converse with our Director of Rec, but what I might suggest, just given as I kind of quickly scanned through the project overview document, and I do recall some conversation with Blackline, I think from the perspective, they had identified it as a long-term recommendation as well. What I might suggest, if it's amicable, I can appreciate that, there's some eagerness to leverage some financial benefit. I think it is a pretty big, we did, in my previous experience, we did go through something very similar at my previous municipality I worked for. I think it is we already are in, ultimately approaching Q2 very shortly of 2018. If it's amicable to Councillor Rawson, what I might suggest is potentially move it to a medium term. So we will expedite it a little faster than, but I think it might be a little bit, aggressive to move it to short term, recognizing that I also have ultimately 3 other short term opportunities that Sherry and her team would be engaged in. Unless there's an appetite to plug and play some of those short-term ones and move them out a little bit further.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Seo. Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I look at this and I look at the forthcoming report from REC, and they're looking for some extra bodies, they're looking for this, and Councillor Rawson saying let's jump ahead to number 18 instead of this number and this number. I don't believe overall that council has looked at this service delivery review from all 4 sections, and I would recommend that we take one night with nothing but the service delivery review, sit down and go through these items one by one, section by section. That would draw out the new map, and that would sort of lead us in the direction. Because if we look at this one and then we spend all our funding on one item. Well, 3 weeks later, then transportation comes back and says, whoa, we were getting 4 guys and 3 new plows. Well, hang on. Then Carrie's here saying, well, the communications was more important. To me, to look at them individual, we're just going to screw ourselves over and forget the whole process. So I would recommend that we just take one night, go through it all, and make a decision on which way we'd like to go.
Thank you Mr. CAO. Do you have a comment for that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I guess I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification. I think in terms of what Councillor LaRose is suggesting, what I guess my only comment to committee is I do think that committee needs needs full input and needs the entire picture on each of these 18 opportunities. And I think in fairness to staff, for us to pick a special, and again, I'm not, maybe that's where I'm a little bit confused in terms of what it exactly is Councillor Rose is looking for. But I do think we've structured it this way so that staff have an opportunity to look at the entire picture and present the entire business case and the entire situation for each of these opportunities to committee so that they can make informed decisions. And maybe I'm misunderstanding what Councillor LaRose is referring to, but ultimately I just want to be sure that staff have an opportunity to look at the full picture so that committee is making informed decisions. And I think the way to do that is to stagger these, as Blackline had suggested as well, over the short, medium, and long term. Now, if Councillor Rose, and again, pardon me, maybe I'm a little bit confused, but if he's suggesting that we take one meeting just to simply look at the big picture and look at the roadmap and maybe shuffle some of these from a priority perspective, then that I'm certainly open to whichever direction committee would like to proceed with.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor LaRue.
Madam Chair, we're dealing and have been dealing for quite some time here with a report that was supposed to be an FYI item, and we've been hitting on all the rec and culture needs and immediate needs and wants and needs. So I'm just wondering why we just can't move off of this, and then when we get to our rec and culture section, we can deal with that immediate issue.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Councillor Rawson, you wanted to speak again?
I do. With all due fairness and respect to the CEO, I totally disagree with everything he stated. With fairness to the CEO, the mayor a while ago asked to have a committee to drill into each of these items and asked to have a subcommittee, and I think he challenged the CEO's ability to bring back what he felt was a priority. So with respect to him, the CEO, we haven't had that opportunity, and that's what Councilor Rose is asking for. So I totally support Councilor Rose, and I totally support that's what the mayor was suggesting a while ago. With fairness to the CEO, he's saying this is the roadmap that he's outlined. With fairness to the CEO, he's changed the order. So Blackline may have said order 1, but he may have said, no, it should be in order 5. So it doesn't matter what he wants or what Blackline wants. What do we want? And that's what I'm saying here tonight is, I appreciate they've done this work, but now it's our turn. Are we going to rubber stamp what they've asked and suggested, or are we going to look at it and go, what do we want? And that's all I'm suggesting. I think that's what the mayor asked for a while ago. That's what Councilor Rose is asking for tonight. And I'm saying the reason why I want this to come first is this is the roadmap. So we rubber stamp his roadmap, or are we going to challenge it? I'm saying let's challenge it.
Thank you. Are there further comments? Yes, Your Worship.
So I'm fine with having the conversation that Councilor Rose and Councilor Rawson are chatting about. I think we do need to have a conversation on this and have felt that for some time. So I'm just looking at council in terms of, or our CEO in terms of a special council meeting to have this conversation. Could you be ready in 2 weeks, 4 weeks? What's your sense on how quickly council could actually meet and engage in this conversation?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm ready to have the conversation now. I think I understand that you simply want to talk about each of the recommendations or each of the opportunities in a little more detail, and potentially look at maybe reprioritizing some of these in terms of short, medium, long term. So I can be ready, and certainly it was my hope and my intent that we could do that this evening, but if it's the will of committee to do a special meeting, I'm certainly happy to entertain that too.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, look for a second here, that council meet at a special committee meeting to review the service delivery roadmap. Sorry, Stacey, you're gonna... Oh, that's on the floor now, Stacey? Sorry, okay.
Regarding the service for information.
So we'd have to defeat this, okay. I'll hold my motion because that will frustrate the main motion, okay.
Okay, I think we've had lots of good discussion. I will call for the vote. Those in favor of the motion, do I need to read it again, or everybody's okay? The motion that is included, I'll read it. The CAO report 18-01 regarding the roadmap for the service delivery review be received for information, and that the committee recommends to council that staff proceed with the processes as outlined in this report, and that committee recommends to council the approval of the attached service delivery review roadmap. I have a mover and a seconder, Madam Clerk. So I will call the vote. All those in favor? So this motion is defeated. We have one in favor. And the phone, Councillor Louder? Councillor LaRue? Thank you. So the motion is defeated. Your Worship, you had another motion you wanted to
Sure, and
bring
I'll craft
forward.
this up, and maybe I'll let the clerk to wordsmith this a little better than I'm doing on the fly here. The council hold a special committee meeting regarding the roadmap for service delivery review to be provided for the opportunity to add, change, and delete items on the delivery map. Service delivery road.
Roadmap.
Roadmap, thank you. Apparently I get lots of help crafting these. You okay with that?
Oh.
I will, I think, Councilor, so it's add, change, and delete items on the service delivery roadmap at a special council meeting.
Have a mover.
I will move that. Look for
The
a second.
seconder, Councillor Rawson. All those in favor? Yes, by all means, Councillor. Discussion.
No, I'm a little confused, Jerry, because you use two terms, a special committee meeting and a special council meeting. You use both terms, and all I'm trying to get straight is, are you looking for a special meeting of committee of the whole?
Probably might be a special meeting committee of the whole, so that we have 2 weeks to think about what we said. I think that's probably wise. So special meeting committee of the whole. Thanks, Brett.
Yes, Councillor Mayat.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Maybe if we have that meeting, make it in April, so we have all the councillors here instead of on the phone back and forth.
Thank you for those comments. Good. Are there further comments or discussion? Seeing none. Stacy, do you have, or do we need a motion, or we all have the intent? We have the intent. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, so all those in favor? Carried. Opposed? Oh, on the phone, my goodness. Councillor Louder? Councillor LaRue? Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to our last item. This item is a recommended action that a 5-year agreement renewal for the 911 CERB service be approved, and that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Rawson. Discussion. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Councillor Rawson, or Councillor Louder? Councillor LaRue? Thank you. Referrals to upcoming agenda, or that Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional existing referrals to upcoming agendas. Does any member of council wish to speak to any of these, or I think we can remove the smoke and policy on parks and town property. We can remove that. Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Louder? Councillor LaRue? Very good. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. We'll go over to Recreation and Community Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Mayat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to come back up to mine. Consent agenda, recommendation action that the following agenda items have been given due to consideration for receiving information. Yes, well, I want to pull 3 items out of here, so I guess I got to turn the chair to someone else to read this because I want to pull 3 items.
Okay. All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All righty, so I'll take it over for here for a moment. So the consent agenda item has 2 items that have been pulled for discussion. So item number 4, which is Safe Cycling Education Fund application, has been pulled by staff for another date, and the amphitheater sponsorship from Enbridge has been pulled as well. So Councillor Mayat, you wish to pull one of the or some of the other 4 remaining items?
Well, it was the number 4, 5, and 6, but 2 of them I guess is pulled by staff.
So you want number 5 then?
One
Okay.
number 5,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. Does anyone wish to pull the other 3? See none, then I'll look for a mover and seconder for the other 3 to receive information. Councillor LaRose, Councillor Levy. Final comments, questions? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor Lauder? Councillor LaRue? Okay, thank you very much. And item number 5, Winterama 2018 post-event summary. Councillor Mayat, please.
Actually, Your Worship, the reason I was going to pull the 3 of them, because we're always looking for something new and exciting or good news for the town. And Winterama was one of them, the cycling and the amphitheater. And I think is what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to the manager of Rec and Culture. She's got all the information. It was very exciting news, which I think the public should know too. Sherry?
Thank you, Councillor Mayat. So yes, a couple good news stories for the town. So the Safe Cycling Education Fund became available, and the county reached out and was looking for some municipalities to partner. So we have applied for $7,500 to run a safe cycling education program. So part of that will be, if we're successful, will be a radio campaign handing out some bike lights and bumper stickers to support safe cycling. And there's no cost to the municipality for that. So, and that's part of our participation in the Ontario Municipal Cycling, Commuter Cycling Program that helped pave the way for that. The other good news story, so hopefully we receive that fund. The other good news story is the Winterama summary report. So just wanted to bring some attention to how successful Winterama was this year. By way of attendance, we believe that we had over 5,000 people attend Winterama. Over 1,000 folks walked through the museum doors on Saturday alone. And I believe Discovery Harbor reported 1,800 people out to the skate trail that weekend, which I think is excellent considering that only half of the trail was operational in the mild weather that weekend. So definitely some good news stories there. And the amphitheater, so a partnership just on the horizon. We haven't signed the agreement yet, but we're very close. And Enbridge is looking to provide the town with $5,000 to help run our Friday night amphitheater programming in exchange for recognition of the sponsorship. So some great news for us.
Thank you very much, Sherry. So I'll look for, oh, sorry, Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple comments about Winterama, how well it was done. And I'm hopeful we can do something to appreciate all the volunteers that helped out with that. You know, Winterama is a signature event. I know a lot of people came out, and I heard a lot of positive things about people opening their arms and welcoming people. So hopefully we can do something like we did for the Bantam Flames tonight, and just applaud everyone that helped out to make it a fabulous success.
Great thought. Good. So I need a mover and seconder to receive this for information.
Yeah, need a mover and seconder for this. Councillor LaRose and Councillor Rawson, all in favor? No opposed? On the phone, Doug, in favor? Councillor Louder? Thank you. Matter for consideration, the RCS additional staff requests for the arena. Recommended action that $16,118 of the $168,761 of the 2018 service delivery review budget be allocated to the arena operation budget for the hiring of two temporary part-time facility attendant for approximately September the 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019, as described under the option A for approval. I'm going to turn this over to the manager, Sherry. She can explain a little bit better.
Thank you, Councillor Mayette. So the first report that we have before for Committee of the Whole is a request to consider hiring two facility attendants. So it's a position that we currently do not have within the town. I understand that we did have part-time staff, traditionally students, that we've hired in this role. We recognize that there are times at the arena, whether it's health and safety, providing good customer service, or just a lot of duties to complete at once with snow removal of the parking lot and playoff game happening or whatnot, that an extra set of hands is certainly required to make things safe for both the public and for staff. So we've done an analysis, and we recognize that the service delivery review has identified some opportunities for efficiencies. So what we've done is recommended the temporary addition of staff to allow time for us to implement some of those efficiencies and bring the workload more in line with the resources that are available to us.
Okay, do we have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Rawson.
I can talk for a long time on this item, so I'll just start with, could we defer this item after we do the special council? If not, I can go on for a long time, because I have 2 paragraphs here. So it's up to the floor.
What's the feel of council on this one?
Councillor Leroux here.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Leroux.
Councillor Mayette, Chair, I'm in complete agreement with Sherry's request. We know that there's a big lack of staffing at both our arena and our parks and gardens, and there's a bad need of it. And for the proposed amount and what we're going to get out of it, I would move that we proceed with it.
Okay, I'm also in favor for option A, because it's been a long time coming, and there's too many times that we were caught with just one staff there, and we should not have that. So I'm in favor for option A. Obviously, okay, well, no, saying I don't know if I go back to Councillor Rawson, or do you want me to go to Councillor LaRose, or? Okay, go ahead, Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that we just talked about reviewing the service delivery remodel in a couple of weeks from now, I believe, when the CAO said it would come back to us, and seeing that these next two items are coming out of there, why would we decide now on them when we're going to be looking at the big picture in 2 or 3 weeks?
Any more discussion, Councillor Rawson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item speaks of efficiencies, and the efficiencies, some of the efficiencies are actually in-camera efficiencies that the CEO has brought forward into tonight's in-camera session, and that was presented to council of the past. So some of these efficiencies, speaking to what's in here, we haven't had a chance to talk about those efficiencies. So with fairness, I think it's only appropriate that we defer this item for that. You know, this report speaks to service delivery review. We just decided a little while ago, let's wait a couple weeks to do it. And if you read the report, it talks about, well, we need more staff to put up our 50-pound tables. Well, let's buy 10-pound tables. Snow removal. I've been there and I see them doing snow removal. I bet you if we asked Brian and Public Works would go by with a great big snow plow, we do it in 10 minutes where it takes them 2 hours. I don't think we've looked at this well enough and looked at other opportunities to save some money. I've talked to the CEO a couple times this year. Right now, staff have said they take up to 2 hours to clean that parking lot, and they push the snow onto the sidewalk. What good is that? So we need more staff because they're pushing snow on the sidewalk? Let's talk to Public Works. I'm pretty sure Brian's Equipment can do it in minutes compared to their hours. All we're asking for is defer this. It says September of 18. What's the rush? Let's delay this. Let's have the conversation a couple weeks, then let's look at it. I'm going to move a motion, Mr. Chair, that we defer this until the committee, special committee looks at this in 2 weeks.
Councillor Levy?
I would second that.
Okay, so we have Councillor LaRue?
Self and seconded by yourself, that has to be dealt with before we can move on to another motion.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Wasn't the seconder for the motion?
Oops, sorry. There was a motion, but there's no second? So we have to go with Councillor Rawson's motion then? Okay. Can we read the motion again?
I'm not actually amending the motion. I'm basically just putting in the disposition of the motion that it be deferred. But we can, yeah, and we can clarify that in a motion if it's council's will. Okay.
So we're putting it as a motion to defer this to the hopefully April meeting, and we got a seconder, Councillor LaRose. Whoops, Councillor Levy, sorry, I apologize. Do you have any more discussion on this? Councillor Louder, Councillor LaRue? Okay, I guess I'll call for the vote. All in favor for that motion? Councillor Louder? Councillor LaRue? Okay, can I see the hands up again? So we got 4 here, 5 with Councillor Louder and against. We've got Councillor LaRue against the motion. So it's been defeated. I mean, the council has passed. Sorry. So it'll be deferred to the next committee of the whole meeting, I do believe, for discussion. Yeah. Okay, item number 2, RC additional staffing request, gardening crew. The recommendation that $46,336 be reallocated for the park operation budget for hiring 1 temporary seasonal part-time gardener for 3 temporary season full-time recreation labor as described under option B, and that the combination saving in the 2 LED lights is that same, yes, capital project, $5,000 for the Adopt Garden program for the operation budget, and the $14,846 in the 2018 benefit renewal savings be allocated to the fund of wages in the gardening position. And here we have option B, and I'm going to turn this over again to our manager, Breton Call.
Thank you, Councillor Mayette. So again, we have a staffing request for some additional seasonal temporary staffing, and the request is for a gardening crew. We know that, and the service delivery review outlines this, the town has added great infrastructure, much of which is in gardens in our beautiful Rotary water, Park. And it is not being maintained to the level of standards that I believe our residents and our members of council and our staff would expect and anticipate. Many of the calls that I received this summer of concerns and complaints with respect to the condition of, for instance, Legacy Walkway, and we just do not have the gardening expertise and the gardening staff on board to maintain the level of infrastructure and gardening space that has been added to the town in the last few years, and I believe that's been outlined in my report. We also did a comparison with some neighboring municipalities as well in there, and it clearly indicates that we do not have the level of staffing that's reflective of our gardening needs. Outlined in the option that we have recommended is that we are currently exploring the possibility of sharing a gardener with the town of Midland. So the gardening crew would be responsible for maintaining gardens in the town of Midland as well as Penetanguishene. So looking at providing a efficient balance of hands in the dirt, pulling weeds, doing the labor, as well as hiring someone in the staffing complement that would have that level of expertise, that would understand what is required to properly maintain some of the vegetation that has been added to the gardens, and provide direction to the staff.
Okay, so from our record manager, we have option B to be approved. Do I have a mover or a seconder or a different option? We have a mover, the mayor. Do we have a seconder for the motion? The seconder is Councilor LaRue. Thank you. So do you want to read the motion or just? Okay, discussion. I'm sorry. Yes, discussion. Your worship.
Thank you very much. One of the things, we invested $3.5 million in our park. We've invested in our downtown. We put up our flowers. We put up our plants. And one of the things that we pale in comparison time and time again to other municipalities of our size is the beautification of our town and how it looks. And one of the things that our residents use the most in our town is our roads. The second thing they look at is how the town looks and feels as they go through our parks and they enjoy our landscape. So, I've often had times, watched our seniors out there weeding, gardening on our behalf, going to, in front of the post office and pulling weeds, and going into our Rotary Park and pulling weeds. I mean, I don't need a service delivery review or any other thing to tell me that we do not have enough people maintaining our gardens, investing in our gardens. And I can tell you that, in my 7 years here, going on 8 now, we've had several occurrences where council has been frustrated when our flowers died before the long weekend in August because we didn't have a proper gardening skill set. So I'm totally supportive of this, and I think there's a wee bit of sense of urgency because we want to hire a gardener pitter patter, because now's the time, because we're sitting here in March and spring's around the corner.
Councillor Levy?
Thank you very much. I'll be brief, but I do support what the mayor is saying. There is a timeliness to this. The director has to do a certain amount of planning, and believe it or not, spring is coming. So I too would like to see our gardens maintained, because once they are let to go to rack and ruin, the expense of bringing them back is going to be horrendous. So I think we would be wise to approve this particular item now.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I speak in support of this as well. Actually, the Rotary Club was in the Legacy Walk last year, and we certainly made an attempt to clean it up and I think it's very needed, and there is an urgency. Spring is around the corner, so I support the comments that have been made, and hopefully we are going to move forward with this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't been called a Scrooge yet or a Grinch from my esteemed member to Mighty 11, so I'm going to give you my comments. This is going to go down. I know this is going to go, but I find it funny. Last year, after we did all the work, members of council would come here and they would say how great the town was looking after. We put in extra resource last year. Like, I didn't hear anybody come here and say it was crappy. It looked like crap. I just heard it was beautiful. But this year, we're putting another 46,000. I also find it funny that we're taking the money from capital. You know, we saved some money with sub capital, so let's readdress that to operations. Meanwhile, 2 meetings ago, we had a $2.8 million request come forward that our arena needs some repairs. Our Main Street, we were shuffling, trying to find some money. We have a lot of capital issues, but we're going to plant some more flowers. It just seems wrong to me, but I know I won't win that. So I'll just rest on that. I'll stay the Grinch, and it is what it is.
Oh, and here comes the other one.
That I don't feel too bad on this one, Councillor Rawson.
Okay, we have Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of both ways on this. I can understand that we need a little bit, but at the rate of $2,500 a week to pull some stuff and put some people into that, I don't really think that we're giving it the due time that it needs to say it requires $47,000, or could it be done as it was done last year and enhance it by $10,000 or $20,000? I don't understand where the science comes in of taking the money from the capital program, the other 14 and another $5,000 and adding up. To me, that's an awful great big increase from where we were over the last 2, 3, 4 years. To add $46,000 just to weed some gardens. Guys, that I understand we could use some help, but that's an awful big ask.
Councillor Lawler, do you have any comments?
However, I was looking to remove one of the recreational laborers, and as such have the one part-time gardener and the 2 laborers, and that would save some money. I do know our gardens are very important, and it really beautifies our town, which is extremely important, especially with the construction and everything coming up. We want to still keep people happy. I was hopefully to remove one of the recreational laborers.
Councillor LaRue, do you have any comments? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I wish to stay with option B, which is what was directed from our recreation director. I said we have to realize that we have a lot of capital that grows and grows, but if you don't have the people to look after it, then where does it go? We have so many parks and so many boulevards, and Main Street is so much more to look after, and I think the need is there, and this one I fully support.
Thank you, Councillor LaRue. Councillor Saunders, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the only part of this, let me back up by saying I'm going to support the resolution. But the only thing I find puzzling is why now? I mean, the budget was created back last fall. There was all kinds of opportunity for recreation people, along with all the other departments, to give consideration to their needs for the upcoming year. And now we're barely into the new year, and we've got a change in the budget. And that's something I find very, very frustrating, because what it suggests to me was that inadequate planning and thinking was given to the budget in the first place. And so this comment is primarily aimed at our CAO, and I would like to hope that in this upcoming year's budget process, that in fact departments give thought to their needs down the road, not just come along partway through a new budget year and decide that, well, we can save here, we'll throw it over here. I also, while I've got the floor, agree with my colleague to my right completely that the whole idea of using capital dollars for operations purposes, I find totally repugnant. Capital dollars are too hard to come by and ought to be used for capital purposes. I hope that over time that can be fixed as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Saunders. Councillor LaRose, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if I could make a motion that we approve this with a funding value at $25,000 and that the capital money be returned back to the capital project.
Stacy?
We do have a mover and a seconder with motion on the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've got a mover and a seconder for option A. The mover was the mayor, and the seconder was Councillor LaRue. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to address the first comment that Councillor Saunders spoke about with respect to budget. In fairness to the Director of Recreation and Community Services, staffing and adequate levels of resources have been top of mind for quite some time. What I asked senior management or senior leadership team to do is to that we would not be bringing forth any staffing recommendations to committee or council in advance of the delivery of the service delivery review. And so here we are. The service delivery review has been presented, and we are certainly working through our roadmap and will in 3 weeks have that healthy debate at committee. But certainly that was the direction that I provided to senior leadership team, was that we don't bring forth any staffing recommendations, all while the service delivery review process was being undertaken. So hopefully that provides some context in terms of timing.
Thank you, CAO. So, Councillor Levy?
Yes, I would support, at this point, I would support Councillor LaRose's amendment to go to the 25,000. I would see it as a temporary move until we can have the full discussion at the review. I know I said I see the urgency, and I still do, and that's why the 25 would get us to a certain point where this can be fully reviewed along with all the apples and the oranges in the cart. So I think that's a really good compromise.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Levy. Mr. Mayor? Go ahead, Councillor LaRue.
Councillor Rose mentioned, and I believe also Councillor Ross and taking removing dollars from capital to do whatever reading and operational stuff. On the other hand, are our parks not capital investments? Is my comment.
Okay, sorry, Councillor LaRue, it was a little harder to understand, but are you saying that your comment is that the capital investments in the park are why?
What I'm saying is that our parks are capital investments. They are capital, and so basically we're removing money from capital, which is required for our parks. Parks are capital. They're not operational. So I'm moving money from capital to operations. It's all the same.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any more? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I appreciate the Canadian ways to go down to 25,000, but I got a couple of questions. So one, this is workloads beyond the parks, right? I mean, we got Hillside and Robert Street that every year my phone rings off the hook going, when are we going to cut the grass up there? So I look to Sherry, and it's never an easy task for staff to come post-budget and ask for staffing resources. So, I mean, I look at Jeff and our CEO and I look at our director and know that this is not coming from us without some well-thought-out intent. I worry less about moving capital dollars over to operating. Taxation's taxation. I mean, as long as staff doesn't move capital to operating without telling council and getting our permission, I'm okay with always having that opportunity, because at the end of the day, we tax for both sides of operating capital. So, I'm okay with that. But before I vote one way or another on this, Sherry, could you describe the workload that you're facing here? Because it's more than just pulling weeds and more than just fluffing flower beds.
Thank you for your comments, Your Worship. So yes, it's more than just pulling weeds. It's the person that was sort of overseeing the gardening aspects last year has lots of recommendations as well about what we could do with the mulching, what we could be doing for treating the underlying of the bed, looking at the best combination of plants, understanding design, when watering should happen, when it shouldn't happen. I think it's more of a science than probably the average person or lay person understands, and it's part of the staff certainly did consider the $25 an hour value of that person, and that's why we're not recommending a full-time body on that. We're thinking that we can tap into that much needed expertise to help manage and maintain the infrastructure without letting it slip too far sort of out of our hands before we have to dump a lot of money to keep it going. So investing that money into a part-time body that brings that level of expertise to the town to guide some cheaper labor to help implement what needs to happen. And what we looked at was this is a one-time for this year only. We're not asking for next year going forward. We will make that consideration later on and bring it forward in time for budgetary consideration. But the gardens are already to a point where they need some additional love and labor to get them back to where they should be, because they're already gone a little further than had they been maintained properly from a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, so the motion's on the floor, was moved by the mayor, was seconded by Councillor LaRue, that we go with option B. Is that correct?
We do have a motion on the floor, but I also think that I've heard that Councillor LaRose and supported by Councillor Levy would like to make a friendly amendment to that motion. And what I heard, but I may have missed it, was that what I noted was Councillor LaRose requested a friendly amendment to the motion to reduce the reallocation amount to $25,000. That's it? Okay. So it would be up to council to determine whether or not that friendly amendment would be allowed.
Your worship?
I'd argue it's not a friendly amendment, so it's a significant change, so I'd say we need to vote on the amendment, debate the amendment, and then vote on that.
But shouldn't we vote on the motion first? Did we vote the amendment first? Okay, so we have a mover for the amendment of $25,000 by Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Levy. Okay, any more discussion on this? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Councillor LaRue? Councillor Louder? It defeated. So now we go back to the main motion, which was moved by the mayor and seconded by Councillor LaRue for option B. All in favor? Councillor LaRue? Councillor Louder? So it passed because the against is 3? Yeah. So option B is the one that has passed. Thank you. Okay, coming up on referral for agenda staff, that the Rec and Culture Service section endorse the following additional and existing referral on upcoming agenda and staff. Is there anything we want to remove or add? Can I have a mover to accept that? Councillor Rawson, the seconder, the deputy mayor, all in favor? Thank you. And do we have any question period from the media or public? Turn over to you. Oops, sorry.
It works. I know I can't talk about anything past, but I just want to commend the council on having a good head about keeping things as simple, common sense, and straightforward as possible. We are in turbulent times financially. Penetang has a high tax rate. The more we can do to keep things cost effective, it's not all about flash living in a community, it's about living reasonably well with comfort. Having said that, if the odd senior happens to get down on their padded knees and starts pulling weeds out of a front yard of public building, let them, let us. We're looking for something to do, so, you know. Anyways, that was my comment. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for the comment. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn at 10:05. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Levy, she had two hands up. All in favor? That is carried. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining in, watching us.